was all exactly there for the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium. Beat North Carolina, and you're almost certainly going to be in a marquee bowl game in the Orange Bowl. Instead, you know how it went. The worst defensive performance in Miami Hurricanes football history. And now the Canes are looking at a lesser bowl date, probably in Orlando, possibly against a team like Oklahoma State. And the college football world is debating whether all the equity that was built up during the course of an 8-1 start to this football season has been lost. It became about what they did then, just as the song said. It was disappointment. There really couldn't be a more appropriate word, but disappointment will turn the hope tomorrow as National Signing Day arrives with a new class of Hurricane players, including highly touted Miami Palmetto defensive tackle Leonard Taylor and defensive back James Williams from American Heritage. Meanwhile, it has been the most bizarre recruiting cycle of our time, with no official visits and no coach travel. But Miami took advantage of the coronavirus situation and appears to have locked in most of the top talent in South Florida, barring any late drama tomorrow morning. The class could form a good nucleus for Manny Diaz as he continues striving to establish himself as a head coach. We will preview that signing class tonight in the 10 o'clock hour with the Dean of South Florida High School Football, Mr. Larry Bluestein. He'll be joining me, and we will talk about all of the recruits that are expected to become Miami Hurricanes tomorrow. Before then, we will try to decipher what went wrong in the North Carolina game as we begin this new edition of CaneSport Live, presented tonight by JFQ Lending, your full-service mortgage provider, licensed in more than 40 states. Hello again, everybody. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we welcome you once again to CaneSport Live, what is sure to be an animated edition tonight as we slice and dice everything that came before us on Saturday. As always, this is your show. It'll be driven by your participation. The call-in number is 563-999-3550. That's 563-999-3550. More than 100 open phone lines, plenty of room for everybody to call in and participate. You know the drill by now. You want to come on the show, you hit the number 1 on your keypad. That puts you in the queue, and we bring you on the show in the order that you land in the queue. We once again ask the subscribers at CaneSport.com to post the topics and questions that they would like to hear discussed on tonight's show, and we will address those as we move along here in the first couple hours. Try to make sure we move through them so that we can spend most of the last hour talking about recruiting. All right, so there's 2 particular hot buttons that we need to address right from the start here. Many of you have been shouting out loud for massive changes now on the defensive side of the organization in the wake of Saturday's historically poor performance. You want to see Blake Baker replaced as defensive coordinator. You want to see Manny Diaz bring in an entirely new philosophy and sideline himself as the defensive guru or voice of this program. Whether that's reality or not, we could talk about. But first, take a listen to what Manny said when we asked him about Blake Baker and the defensive staff.
I mean, to me, look, I'll answer the question about staff really the same way I did a year ago, which is that, my feeling is that you wait for a season to end, you evaluate the season in its entirety, and then you do what's best to improve the football team, and it obviously worked for us a year ago, and I think, my job is to, again, get away from the emotion of results either in the super positive or in the super negative. We had a really bad result last weekend, and it doesn't hurt anybody more than it hurts Blake. And really, it's not just Blake; it's really the entire defensive staff. And it hurts me because obviously, defense is something that I've always taken pride in, and have never seen a day like this past Saturday. So right now the focus is what we have to do is we have to rebuild. We have to rebuild it. We got to rebuild it for the bowl game. Whenever we find out where we're going and who we're playing, we got to put out a performance. Just remember, just 7 days ago, it was the exact opposite, right? I mean, 7 days ago, it might have been our best defensive performance of the year. Opposition certainly has something to say in that, but the extremes of how well we played one weekend to how poorly we played the other weekend. So my responsibility is to get it back on track as the head coach. And then Blake and our defensive staff right along in line to make sure that that's an outlier that we never see again.
So can you talk a little bit about just how you guys approach defense and game planning and calling a game on game day? My understanding has been that it's somewhat of a group effort.
So, yeah, I mean, as a defensive staff, not really all that dissimilar to when I was defensive coordinator. We have a very tight staff. We have guys that have been together for a long time. We all game plan together, early throughout the course of the week. I'm in every defensive meeting that ever takes place. Blake, as a defensive coordinator, organizes all the practices. And I'm on the defensive field the entire time, during practice. And Blake calls the defenses on game day. And so that's been our MO now here for a couple of years, the way we have. But look, I mean, nothing could point to a performance like what we did past Saturday. Everybody, including myself, has to take full ownership of it. And as I keep saying, what matters really is what happens now going forward. And we've got a chance to fix it and then take a look at where we are at the end of the year, which is ultimately my job.
All right, I have a hard time seeing Manny firing his defensive coaches after everything that they've gone through this year with the coronavirus and everything else. I know how everybody feels. I just don't see it happening. You just heard him talk about how it's a group effort on defense, and essentially firing Blake Baker is firing himself. And I've been trying to screen this out the entire year. Manny is involved in everything on the defensive side of the football, from the game planning to what's going to be called in what situations. Blake Baker might be making the signals or telling others what the signals are going to be play to play when it's 2nd and 5 from the 30-yard line. But what that call is going to be has been discussed incessantly during the course of the week as they look at the opponent's tendencies and decide how they want to attack it and how they want to attack in different scenarios during the course of the game. So maybe somebody decides to leave on their own, we'll see. But me personally, I have a hard time seeing him firing his defensive staff and bringing in a whole new defensive staff with a whole new philosophy and making himself a ceremonial head coach. I just can't imagine Manny deciding to go in that direction. But we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I know that's what a lot of people want. There's obviously been a lot of debate on the message boards and things like that. But I'm hesitant to talk too much about what they've gone through because it sounds like you're making excuses when you do that. And that's the last thing that I ever do. I don't make excuses for anything. I think everything's, all about accountability. Nobody could have been more, come stronger at the end of last season when they went 6-7 and lost to those teams at the end of the year. And it was the biggest disaster in college football. And we discussed it on this show with that in mind. And yeah, it was harsh conversation because the program was an absolute mess. I mean, it was the greatest train wreck in college football at the end of last year. Well, that's not where we are right now. I mean, everyone's disappointed and everything, but I mean, it was just beating the teams in the ACC that we all out here think that they should beat every single year. Just doing that this year until this North Carolina game is a forward step. And it should be treated like a forward step. It shouldn't excuse what happened Saturday night. That was a total debacle. But to to try to make an argument that they've lost all their equity and the season's a disaster and all that, I'm just not buying into that personally. I know some of you guys are, and I'm sure we'll talk about that quite a bit here tonight. But look, a lot of coaches have been in and out the last few weeks with different levels of health issues due to the coronavirus. Okay, and I'm not going to violate at this point personal health privileges and stuff like that by going into gory details, but it has been chaotic on the defensive side of the football. Now, we didn't see the remnants of that at Duke. I mean, the Duke game, they played spectacularly on defense, but I think we got to remember they were going against a Duke team that really didn't even have its toes in the water in that game. They clearly had zero interest in being there. We talked about that on this show, that was going to likely be the case, and they really mounted very little challenge. And that was obviously a mirage. Okay, North Carolina was a different beast. North Carolina was the most explosive offensive football team in the United States this year. Okay, more explosive than Alabama and Florida and everybody else. It had more big plays and explosive plays than any other team in the country. So I don't care where the game's being played, Hard Rock or in Chapel Hill. You come into a game against that team, you better have your shit together, okay? And Miami didn't have its shit together at all, and that was obvious to all of us from the very beginning. And the stat sheet certainly told the story afterwards when they gave up more yards than any defense in the history of Miami Hurricane football. So everything crash landed. They were woefully unprepared, and Carolina was stoked to take advantage of it. And so we see a lot of schools out there making coaching changes, and obviously a lot of people are thinking in that direction. But how does a second-year head coach fire the offensive staff that he hired after year one, and then come back in year two and do the same thing on the defensive side of the ball? So you're telling me you become a head coach, you hire a staff, and you're going to fire pretty much all 10 coaches in your first 24 months on the job? I mean, when do you ever see that happen? Like that would be a sad commentary that Manny would be making on himself and his ability to hire coaches. I don't see it happen. All right. And then you add the fact that this is Manny's defense, and it would be like firing himself. So I don't see that happening. So let's move on. And I'm sure we'll talk about that once we get to your calls. The next hot button is obviously D'Eriq King and the anxiety over whether he will decide to return in 2021. On face value, it would seem now is the time for King to go find out if he can make it in the National Football League. I think that was his plan as recently as a couple of weeks ago, and maybe it still is, but I do think there's an opening. The new name, image, likeness rule that almost certainly is coming into effect in January might be an opening for the Hurricanes to pull together a consortium of local businesses who will pay King for endorsements that would allow him to make enough money to make it worthwhile for him to stay and be a Miami Hurricane one more year. We'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be a great test of this new system and how impactful it might or might not be. Because let's face it, if you're a local business and you're looking for somebody to represent your car dealership or something, I mean, who that's coming back on next year's team would you look to do that? Assuming that the Phillip, even if Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche come back, I mean, you're gonna hire Quincy Roche to help you sell cars. To me, the guy that's positioned right now to do that is D'Eriq King, and I think that this is going to be a great test of how impactful the name, image, likeness thing is going to be. And I know Manny has a great vision for that, and we talked to him about the return of D'Eriq King and about the endorsement aspect of it. This is what he said.
I don't think D'Eriq has ever been in the same offensive system 2 years in a row. And so just to be able to come back and have the continuity of staff and the players around him, would be of immense benefit. And then really all you have to do is look at North Carolina on offense. Year two in a system that's not really dissimilar to ours in some ways. And if you look at the numbers from last year to this year, they're different, and just the repetition and getting comfortable in doing it, and then the chemistry and all the things we missed out on by losing, half of March, April, May, in June, and not even be able to throw 7-on-7 in the summer, So there's so much more, to be accomplished, I think, with our offensive personnel, and I think they feel that.
With the name, image, likeness coming into play most likely in January, does that become a factor in maybe trying to get him to come back next year? Possibly, people in the community rallying together and getting him involved in endorsements, things like that might make it more appealing for him to wait a year to go try to take his shot in the National Football League?
I would hope so. I would hope that name, image, and likeness, when that gets voted in January and implemented there afterwards, I would hope that would help a lot of our young men, starting with De'Eric. But I think that's a great opportunity for our community, with South Florida, with all the commerce and, and the size of our economy down here compared to, some of the programs that we have to compete against. I think that could be a boon for Miami Hurricanes football, and a chance for us to really rally around our players and in a proper and allowable way for those guys to be able to maximize their brand, and especially whether it's De'Eric being the brand of being the our starting quarterback, especially if he comes back next year, a year from now, and where he would rank in terms of returning quarterbacks in the country. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that that'll be the one thing that anyone says, here's why I'm returning, but it certainly can't hurt. And we're going into a new era of college football, not just with that, but with some other rules, but that's one I think we've got to take advantage of down here in South Florida.
All right, so much to talk about. Let's get right out to your calls. The number 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the number 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. We're going to begin tonight, looks like in the 870, where I believe that's Lemuel. I don't know how the heck he got in the number 1 spot. I think this is a first, but Lemuel, welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you doing this evening?
What's up? It's actually the second.
It is? Okay. So how you doing? What you got? What's on your mind?
All right, so I want to start off saying this before I start ripping people. Manny Diaz should, of course, be head coach. He should be the head coach. 82 is a great job. After you had a year 6 and 7, of course, the last game didn't go how it goes. Of course, I see some weaknesses, but 8-2, that's progress. That's where we are. That's what type of talent we got. But I do want to address something that we always say, and I think me and you have debated this before, Gary. Where you say, man, firing Blaker would be like firing himself. Okay, so fire him. Get another defense coordinator. It was a guy named Diabo Sweeney that was the offensive coordinator at Clemson in 2008, and he was also interim head coach. Offense sucked.
Are you sure he was the coordinator? Are you sure about that?
Yeah,
I'd have to double check that.
He was the offensive coordinator, and then became the interim coach because they fired Bowden in the season in 2008. So he ended up being the interim coach. That he went like 4-2 or 4-3, and then the next year he became full-time head coach. So the next year they won 9 games his first full year, and then the next year after that they were 6 and 7, and the offense was horrible. And I remember him in the interview. Hey, the next year, you ain't going to say our offense is horrible no more. He went and he hired the guy that's the Auburn offense, Chad Morris. He went and hired Morris, and rest is history. Now, you have to remember this. After he hired Chad Morris, I think that's won 10 games that next year, and their defense got beat by West Virginia. West Virginia put 70 on them in the bowl game. He fired the defensive coordinator.
Let me stop you for 1 second, Lemuel. All right, I'm looking at Dabo's resume right now. All right,
I'm looking at it too.
He was not the offensive coordinator. Well, he was that last year when he became the interim head coach.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he was not a long term. This is not. You're talking in Manny Diaz. You're talking a 20-year defensive coordinator. Okay, Dabo
Yeah,
wasn't a 20-year offensive coordinator, Lemuel. He'd been the offensive coordinator for that was his first season ever as a coordinator. You're not. It's not apples to apples, man.
Okay. Yes. Okay, Gary. How many years was the offensive coordinator with LSU being an offensive coordinator? How many years was he offensive coordinator in his resume? That was his first year being the offensive coordinator at LSU, correct?
Who are you talking about?
Okay, so
I don't know who you're talking about.
That was Joe Brady.
I believe you're correct, and he wasn't even the offensive coordinator by himself. He was the passing. I believe he's the passing game coordinator.
Exactly. So the years, I don't care. I'm talking about results. So when Dabo results was not good. That's my point. The results weren't good. He went and got a coach. Defense got blasted. He went and got a coach. So what you have to do is, if your system not good enough, just say your system not good enough.
All right, but Lemuel, and I'm not saying I agree with you, disagree with you. I'm just saying you're not making apples to apples comparisons, and here's why. Okay, Manny Diaz got the head coaching job at Miami based on his body of work as a defensive coordinator. Okay, Dabo Swinney did not get the head coaching job at Clemson based on his body of work as a offensive coordinator. He got the head coaching job at Clemson because the athletic director there identified him as a young coach that they could build with, that he saw greatness in. Okay, and that guy obviously knew what the heck he was doing. Okay, not that dissimilar to where everyone's other favorite coach on the West Coast, Mario Cristobal, got the Oregon head coaching job in a similar way. The athletic director out there identified something in Mario that he saw that he thought would lead to potential greatness at Oregon, and he gave him the head coaching job at Oregon. So not everybody follows the same path to head coaching jobs. But it was easy. Wait, Lemuel. I'm going to let you obviously talk again. It was easy for Dabo to give up the control of the offense when they brought in Chad Morris, because he did not have a track record in that regard. He had just started to be an offensive coordinator, and he had never had success ever as an offensive coordinator, and he wasn't giving up anything. You see the difference? Manny got the head coaching job here because of what Blake James felt that he had done on the defensive side of the football, right or wrong.
Yeah. And also, too, they felt that Danny Diaz, if they thought at the moment, that it wouldn't be a whole rebuild because he was already in the building, and it would be more of a smooth, we could keep it kind of going type of transition also. So
yeah, but how does that wash out? I mean, they went 7-6. They got annihilated by Wisconsin in the bowl game in New York. Who the hell wants that kind of continuity? So I don't think it was continuity. Right. I think Blake James had a predisposed opinion of Manny, and he wanted to make Manny his guy.
I mean that could be true. I'm not debating that. But what I'm saying is, when you become a head coach, I'll give you another example. Todd Helton at USC. Now, he was offensive coordinator. His offense sucked. He went in and got him a coordinator. It was his offense too, because he was the offensive coordinator there. He had basically his staff, and they were doing the West Coast offense, his offense, and basically they put his fire like, hey, this offense guy, he goes completely in a whole new direction, goes to a running gun guy from Texas, North Texas, brings him along, offense looks much better. So, I mean, there's plenty of guys, if you go around the country, there are plenty of guys that will go and switch because they know what's best for the program. It's really not that hard of a fence to believe. Manny Diaz has to look and see that right now Blake Baker is not what's best for the program. And then, too, I want to talk about this, too. It's still different, I'm telling you. I have seen coaches run the same defense, different play callers, way different results. Same defense. And they get people that calls it differently. So Blake Baker may call it or organize because they're different people. It's not going to ever be the exact same. So with saying fire yourself, I don't believe that. Just go fire him, get another coach. It's a head coaching job. It's not about your pride and saying my system worked. That's what got Al Golden out with Mike D'Onofrio. is basically proud of this is the guy, this is who I want. It's about adjusting and doing what's best for the program. And I remember calling a couple weeks back when I was talking about Blake Baker, and I was saying his preparation, I just didn't like it. Another two that he does and that you will see when you get to another defensive coordinator is the coaching of his position. Blake Baker is the linebackers coach, correct?
Uh-huh.
I saw her play. I'm Gary, when I tell you this, I rewinded. I couldn't believe it. I saw a play early in the game that they pulled the lineman in the hole. Zach McLeod was there. He had moved by the time it got pulled in the hole. So you know that's a long time. So the guy is pulled in the hole. He's right there. So the running back is coming right behind the hole. All he has to do is just step up, take on the block, create some traffic, create mess. That's what we call it, create trash. And he runs left. It's like he ran away. I've never seen that. The ball carrier is coming. He runs away from the ball carrier. Like, I listen, just by the film, I know it has to be hurting him. On this film, there's no excuse that you can have Blake Baker as your linebackers coach or your defensive coordinator based on what you saw. Also, too, Manny should be happy to switch this scheme up. If you look at the games, let's look at the explosive offenses that we play. Louisville did what they wanted, to be honest, to a degree. Turnover, they had an interception here, turnover here. Louisville did what they wanted. Clemson did what they wanted. North Carolina did what they wanted. When we play explosive offenses, and North Carolina did this last year too. And I remember talking about this earlier when we played North Carolina. North Carolina comes out with wide receivers that are mismatches. We cannot have a striker, a safety matched up in a zone, man zone, whatever you want it. You can't have him matched up with their third best receiver because he's explosive. You got to put three corners out there. You got to play nickel the whole game because they are too explosive for you to sit here and have a safety. Because what that does is if you play man, they could put a man in motion. They automatically know you're a man. They know where to go. Then when they know that you're in zone with that, they know what they got then. And so, and a lot of times in your zone, your linebackers got to cover. Our linebackers can't cover. They don't know where they at. So they blitz the linebackers and leave openings over the middle. This scheme doesn't work. I read something in the preseason where coaches were talking, other coaches and other staff were talking about Miami. And the one thing that they say on defense is like their defense is nothing special. They do pretty much the same thing. There's openings. It's a basic zone. There's nothing creative. There's nothing. So, I mean, if you look at the track record as well with Manny Diaz and his defense, he got fired at Texas. If you go back at that time in the SEC offenses were run offenses. They ran the football, tough defense. Everybody played power ball. When he went to Texas, he played against a lot of teams that threw the ball. It was the Big 12. Everybody throwing the ball. He struggled with teams that were explosive, throwing the ball all over the field. So when we look at it, if you really look at the grand scheme of things and you look at what he's done here in Miami, yeah, he's done well against Duke, your NC State. Yeah, I mean, you can name all the bottom teams. The teams that really ain't explosive, he's done well against them, but against explosive teams, we haven't done well. So I just think with that, I don't think it's firing yourself. I think it's called being a head coach. Fire your defense if it's not working. Who cares? We're trying to win games. This ain't the time.
Lemuel, listen, I'm certainly not arguing the case because I think the case it can be made very strongly. I mean, they were helpless against Clemson and they were helpless against North Carolina and somewhat helpless against North Carolina State, and they really didn't play anybody else this year. So, and this is not the first time this has happened. Yeah, right.
Yards too,
yeah, right. So like this is not the first time this has happened. However, I have a hard time seeing Manny Diaz bringing in a defensive coordinator to essentially work over him. And I have a hard time seeing an elite defensive coordinator coming here to work under Manny. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just being honest. I hope, I'm not going to say I hope I'm wrong,
Right.
or come down
I'm
on that side of it. I'm just saying that, I think these guys are a team. I think they work together as a team. I think that they're all friends. They get along very well together, and I can't see Manny Diaz blowing that up as a move towards self-preservation to make the fan base happy that he's changing everything on that side of the ball. He did it with the offense last year. I think it worked out fairly well, but I'll be very surprised if he does it. I mean, I could see where it would be on the table. I'll be surprised if he does it. All right, what else you got for us tonight?
And then on the Derek King thing, I really haven't been abreast to that, but do you think, I'll ask you this question, do you think Derek King is even a fourth round quarterback pick, third round, certainly not first round based on, projections? Where do you think, if let's say he leaves, where does he go? I
think he goes late. I think he's like fifth, sixth round maybe. I think he goes to a team that either wants a guy that can give them a change of pace sometimes, or a team like Arizona or Baltimore that is running that style of offense with that style of quarterback, and he becomes a natural fit as a second or third teamer. That's what makes sense to me. I think that there's a decent chance he would get drafted. But I think that the case that's being made to him is, Derek, you still have upside. You can continue to get better. You can come back here for a year. You can have endorsements, so you'll have money in your pocket. And then a year from now, then go try the National Football League. We think that another year in this offense, you will be better. So, those are going to be the contrasting things. There'll be agents telling him come out. The Miami coaches will be telling him come back, and he'll have to make a decision with his family on what's best for him.
Well,
all right, Lemuel?
Well, there's limited. You got recruiting last hour. Have a good one. You guys stay safe.
All right, man. Thank you for getting us started tonight. 563-999-3550. 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go now to the 786. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Gary, my friend, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing tonight? Everything?
Hanging in there. Still in a little bit of shock, to be quite honest. I talked last week on the show. I mentioned that this would be his biggest test. To be able to take an explosive offense like this with great personnel and to be able to contain it, but most importantly, to be able to take away their biggest strength. And I mentioned that Mac would be doing the same thing against us, and what Mac did was pretty much hit our biggest weakness on defense, which is our second and third level, which we've talked about many weeks in a row now. And if you go back to that Louisville game, other than that game, there really hasn't been an opponent that's really gone out to get some counters, to get some RPO with counters, to extend it, to split it. And we were really exposed with our lack of talent at the second and third level. But in particular, when you look at what we've had to go through, I'm not making excuses. I'm not going to make an excuse, but I am going to be honest with people. The second level of contributors at the linebacker, even in the secondary, you're short on numbers to begin with. You're short on experienced players returning. What you have is a bunch of young guys with very, very little spring time. This is not a very easy defense to run. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it. You've got to have a great football IQ, or at least be able to read and anticipate and go with what you anticipate and what your instincts take over. And we started seeing this one kid started putting things together at middle linebacker, and then COVID came, and he lost about 3.5, 4 weeks. So when you look at what we had to go through and not having that next guy behind you being able to take your job, and I hate to bring up kids' names because that's not fair to them, but McLeod and Jennings were just totally abused. There's no other way of saying it but just to say it. They were highlighted. That's what they wanted to attack. And the most disappointing thing is that once they got past our second level, our third level was just as bad, with angles, with leverage, with just the ability to anticipate what was coming. I was so disappointed in seeing how Amari, I guess Carter was the worst one, but especially Bubba Bolden taking the same wrong angles. I mean, you had guys not wanting to get hit.
All right, so you've been around coaching for
local.
you've been around coaching. You know, I don't know if everybody knows. You know, I guess what you were a women's softball coach. Is that what it was?
Oh, I've done. I was in my later years helping out local high school, but I was college basketball coach for about 10 years.
All right, so you've been around sports for a long time.
So yeah.
Without going through your whole resume.
AD,
So you've been around coaches,
yeah.
you've been around sports for a long time. What do you think happened on Saturday?
I think it was a combination of a bunch of elements that came together, but most importantly, what became evident was the inability to make some basic changes. And I told you last week, you either die a quick death or you die a slow death. Which type of death do you want to go with? And we couldn't defend the pass, so we wanted to play zone. We wanted to keep the ball in front, and then we couldn't get off blocks because you got smacked in the mouth. From the very beginning, the tone was set that we got smacked in the mouth.
I know, we all know. But wait a minute, everything. We all know what happened. We all saw it. I want to know why. I want to know what happened. Like, why did that happen? You've been around sports. You've been a coach. You've been around competition. Tell us why. Why did that happen?
I've never had to deal with a pandemic in all my years of having to coach kids and being able to utilize my practice time to get the growth that I need from these kids, regardless of what the sport is. And when that is inhibited and that is limited, the performance, no matter how talented those kids are, eventually it's going to catch up with you. I think that's a big part of this. The second thing was the inability to make changes. You make changes too slow, and by the time you make them, they're still passive changes. I think all we changed was pretty much how we defended the edge. It's a combination of factors, but it comes down to talent, which tomorrow we're trying to address. Still not addressing in the major needs that we need at linebacker and corner, in my opinion. It's talent, and it's the ability to have guys that can make the right changes at the right times. You don't have a premier coaching staff. You just don't have that. You don't have premier teachers. And it was all pretty much for everyone to witness in this entire country on Saturday. We all got exposed. His defense got exposed. His inability to make the right changes got exposed. The lack of talent we have on defense was exposed. So when I told you 3 weeks ago, everything we've been doing, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors involved and two guys on both sides of the ball carrying this team. And eventually, those two guys can be nullified, and the others have to step up. And guess what, Gary? There isn't enough talent other than those guys that we know will play at the next level to compensate for it. And to get annihilated this way, it's not that they weren't trying. They were just getting their ass kicked.
Yeah, and you're right. They never did adjust. They never adjusted. You're absolutely right about that. And the other thing that really hurt them, I thought, was there were 3 third or fourth down and short yardage plays by the offense at a time when the team needed the offense to get into a shootout. They needed to be able to keep pace. And on third down, and I think the first one was 3rd and 4, the second one was 3rd and 2, and the third one was 4 and 2. And each of those 3 times, Rhett Lashley, who I think has had a phenomenal year, so don't take this like I'm criticizing Rhett Lashley, but in these sequences, he called 3 identical RPO run plays that went right up the middle with Cam Harris, and all 3 of them got stuffed. And when I looked at that, I thought it was so disappointing that it was clear they were going to have to score a lot of points in that game. And I felt like you have to have something in the arsenal right there that you can get those first downs. And you're putting your biggest game of the year in the hands of your weakest point on offense, which is your offensive line, and power blocking down the middle. And I thought that was a gargantuan mistake. And I know all the attention's on the yeah, well, the trick plays, they either work or don't work. But I mean, but it's like you're putting it all on the O-line in that situation. And to me, you got 2 elite tight ends. You got a lot of other. You got the Eric King, who you can get out on the perimeter. You got a lot of other options available to you in that situation in your biggest game of the year. And I couldn't believe that they went down trying to run the ball up the middle with Cam Harris, who might be the 3rd best running back on the team. And I know Knighton wasn't available, but I'm just saying he might just be the 3rd best running back on the team when you slice and dice it all up. And the offense went down in the biggest moments of the year here, trying to run the ball up the middle behind the O-line. And by the time that was over, the game was over, because now we were down, I think, at that point by 24 points. And there was not going to be any stop in North Carolina. North Carolina could have scored 70 or 80 in that game if they wanted to. So, all right, everything. You got anything else for us tonight?
Yeah, I do have a couple of more things. In terms of what the staff didn't do, why didn't they incorporate some of the same concepts that Bronco utilized and the guy at Florida State utilized? I want to know why that wasn't done on defense. I really want to know that. I would love to have an answer to that, because guess what? What do you think Notre Dame did? The exact same thing Florida State did. They shot gaps and they put 7 in the box and said, throw it. I want to know why that didn't happen. But
yeah,
anyway,
I don't have that answer for you, obviously.
I wanted to touch upon the coaching staff. And the question that was one of the first questions that was brought up yesterday, and I watch as many press conferences as I can. Why would anyone think that this guy, who's a control freak, would give the ownership of this defense away to somebody else? This is
I don't think he would. I just said that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Control of. He's not. So for anybody on here to say, well, he's going to fire, he's not firing himself. He's not going to fire somebody that's pretty much his sidekick. He's not going to fire anybody. If there's anybody that's going to go on the staff that hasn't produced recruiting-wise, it's going to be Mike Rump. And I don't think he's going to fire him, but I think, as I was told 2 years ago when he had a chance to go to San Fran, you might want to really look at going with the next opportunity you get from the league, whether it's the internship program, the minority program, whatever it is. Mike's a sharp guy. He's a great teacher. He's not about sucking some kid and making him feel all great and kissing her ass. That's not him. Never going to be him. Never will be him. He's a grown man. He deals with grown men. That's how he coached high school. That's how he coached these kids when they were little in Pee Wee football. The guy is an all-business type of teacher. He's not into the extra. That's not him. And that's what really pissed off Christian Williams. Wasn't the same guy who recruited me. One of the first things he said. Well, guess what? That's just the way the guy is. So Manny better go ahead and find a way to get T-Rob in here. The guy understands the defense because he's a very solid. He was a co-defensive coordinator at one point with Muschamp. The guy knows his crap.
Yeah, I understand, but you think he's coming here to not be a coordinator?
I think you need to pay him as much as you can to get him, because that guy is going to get you what you need, which is called the Jimmies and the Joes. Because guess what, Gary? If we had better Jimmies and Joes, I'm not saying we win this past Saturday, but it ain't like what we just witnessed. It's not that bad.
I agree with you on that. I've been talking about recruiting deficiencies for many, many years. All right, everything. Got to let you go. Thank you, as always, for your opinions and being part of the show. We'll talk to you next time.
Gary.
All right, now I'm going to go to a guy that, I'm looking for answers, okay? We all watch the game, okay? Every one of us who's on this show tonight, listening, myself, We watched the game. We know what happened. I want to know why it happened. And I'm going now to a guy that always has the damn answers, and that's our CaneSport managing editor, Mr. Matt Shodell. Matt, how you doing this evening?
Hey, what's happening?
Tell us what the hell happened on Saturday.
Oh, I know exactly what happened. They lost really badly.
Why?
Manny Diaz, literally, we asked him that question, and his answer was, I don't know. And then he started talking about they were emotionally deficient. I mean, like, if the coaches don't know, and we're not allowed to practice or even on the campus with COVID, like, how are we supposed to even answer that? All we can do is look at what happened on the field. And, I mean, you can run through 10 different excuses, but at the end of the day, it just looked like one of those individual teams that just stopped playing together and just really fell apart completely. I mean, they were the healthiest they've been. It was almost like, it's weird. Like with Jim Larinaga's team, right? A lot of times when they only have like 6 or 7 players available, they seem to play better than when they have 10 players available. And for almost every game this year, it seemed like every guy was so focused in because, oh my God, nobody's behind me on the depth chart because they're all sick with COVID. I got to step up. And then finally, like, almost the whole team's available, and it's like they just took their foot off the gas. But, to me, you blame the coaches, you blame the players. There's just you can blame everybody in this one. This was just I've seen coaches get fired for games like this, but obviously because they were only had one loss going into it, there won't be firings because of this. But like this reminds me of some of these games in the past where you've just seen Randy Shannon fired after a game, or just the volume turned up on Al Golden after a game.
The Al Golden Clemson game, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just it was like that, and like there's only been a couple of games where I'm just like I can't watch this, and the Orange Bowl finale and the Clemson game and this one, that's it. And like there's been 3, and I've been covering this team for 25 plus years, so like that's how uncommon this ugly a game is, and I don't understand how a team this good could be that bad when they said practice went great. And it's one of these unknowns that just keeps happening with this team. And it doesn't seem to matter if Mark Richt's the coach or Al Golden's the coach or now Manny Diaz is the coach. It keeps happening at least once a year, and I don't understand it. It's almost unfathomable.
I think in this case, preparation caught. That team was not prepared Saturday, and I think it caught up to them.
They shouldn't say it was a great week of practice. Every player that we talked to, every coach said, the practice was great all week. How can that be?
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I mean, they had a great week of practice, and they got to the stadium on Saturday, and nobody had a clue what to do. I don't buy that bullshit. Listen, this is not making excuses. They had coaches coming and going for a month. Okay, Manny had coronavirus, Blake Baker, Bonda, everyone, pretty much almost every one of them, Stroud, every one of them had coronavirus at some point, and they had coaches coming and going for a month. Okay, you got GAs trying to fill in for them, coaching during, they ended up taking a couple weeks off. The whole thing was utter chaos. Okay. Now everything could have been perfect, and I think North Carolina beats them going away. So this is certainly not an excuse. But if we're looking for a reason why it was as bad as it was very clear to me that they were not prepared in any way, shape, or form close to properly for that game, and it showed in every way. And I'll never blame I'm not buying that the players didn't show up, the players didn't give effort.
Let me offer a competing theory. How about this theory? They've only played 2 good teams all year, and they got killed by both of them.
Well, good point there too. Yeah, they're just not that good, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the mirage of that Mark Richt 10-win team. It's like they won a few close games against bad teams. Everyone felt good, but they hit another good team, and like. The bowl game, again, we'll see who they play. But, like, if the bowl game is ugly, there is going to be, again, like just this horrible feeling going through the offseason like what fans had last year. And then Manny will add some transfers and this and that, and everyone will get their hopes up again. Like, you just can't have this keep being a cycle. At some point, you got to break the cycle and actually have a team that beats, North Carolina or plays a good game against Clemson if they lose. I'd like just look good doing it. Like that's all I could ask for at this point because, it would be better than what we saw.
A team that doesn't lose every single game against a team that can walk and chew gum, which is what's been going on here for years. Since the end of 2017.
Good about it, but, yeah.
Since they went to Pittsburgh in 2017, and Pitt, I think, was like a 500 team that year. Ever since they went to Pitt, and they had that big Thanksgiving dinner, and then played a Friday game against Pitt and didn't show up, from that day forward, it's been like this every time they play anybody any good. And it's obviously very distressing for the Canes Nation. But, all right, so can this team, Matt, get up for a bowl game after this?
I think that's a great question. We saw what happened last year. It's very concerning. I mean, if you get some guys opting out and just, a lot of turmoil on the team, which could happen. I don't know if it will. It sounds like they're not going to really hold a lot of practices in advance of the bowl game, just have like a regular bowl week of practice. So you're not even getting the benefit of all those normal, quote unquote, 15 practices just because of what's going on in the world. There's just not a big benefit to playing in a bowl game like there normally would be, to develop your younger players and take those 10 extra practices and really get going towards next year. So it's a shame in that regard. And, TBD, like I don't know what to think now heading into a bowl game. There were times this season where I'm like, this team's really good. But I remember telling you before the North Carolina game, I said the worst thing that could have happened to Miami is beating Duke the way they did, because like this is what this team does. Like they feel good about themselves, and the next thing you know, they're just awful. And like now they feel awful, so maybe they'll be better in the bowl game. Like I don't know. Like last year they just it's going to be a testament to really actually maybe it'll actually be say something about Manny Diaz's leadership to see if this team does get up for a bowl game. Because we've had players saying how, and Mike Harley's been very outspoken about this, and I don't even know what to think about this either. But like he says, he was very adamant saying this is a player-led team. It's all the players doing everything, which is basically that's what he said, which, I don't know where that leaves the coaches, but like, I don't know that I like hearing that from a player, because it should be a combination of everything. And I guess Mike's point was in the past, the players haven't been leaders, and he wants to stress that now that's the case. But like, we'll find out in the bowl game, if this team is heading in the right direction going into the offseason, because an ugly bowl loss, and there's going to be a ton of pressure on Manny, especially if the defense is bad, to get rid of his best friend and maybe make some other changes on defense. And we saw how that happened how that went with Al Golden and Mark D'Onofrio. You do not want to be in that situation. So I'm hoping for the best in the bowl game, get off into the offseason on a good note, maybe pick up a couple of transfers, maybe another guy or two in February. Recruiting wise, you already have a great class, and just keep going from there. That's what Miami has to hope. So we'll jury's out.
And then of course you got the season opener of 2021 against Alabama, and man, I hope Blake James doesn't stop scheduling these great games. I mean, listen, Miami Alabama should be a great game. I'm not sure this one's gonna be, but don't minimize the program even more by being scared to schedule the LSUs and the Floridas and the Alabamas of the world, because these games have not gone well. They haven't gone well because this program doesn't have its act together. And, hopefully one day that's going to change. Now, December 20th, they're going to find out. Sunday, they're going to find out who they play. Right now, it looks like a decent chance it's going to be Oklahoma State in Orlando, the Cheez-Its Bowl, the bowl that changes its name every year. So that game is going to be played December 29th. So they will have 9 days from the time they find out who they're playing to the bowl game. It'll be a normal game week of preparation, essentially. They'll have a day or two to break down the film. They'll put their game plans in. They'll have practice all next week. They'll go to the bowl location, I assume, on like the 27th, 28th. That makes no sense to go too many days early, because with coronavirus, you can't do too much. Play the game on the 29th. So I think it's a good thing that it's going to happen really fast, and guys aren't just going to be sitting around and getting stale here. But, this week, I don't think there's any plans for them to practice. They're just doing like light running and lifting weights and things like that. So they'll get deep into the bowl preparations next week. So it's going to be interesting, Matt. And, I'm like you, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, these are not the kind of games that Miami teams have shown up for in the past. I forget what the bowl record is now. Something like 1 in 10 or something in the last 11 bowl games or something. I don't know. We'll have to look that up so we know the right number. But it hasn't been great. And these are not the kind of games that Miami has excelled in. in the past, and so we'll just have to see what happens. But anyway, Matt, thanks as always for coming on with us tonight, and we'll be talking to you again next time.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, he's Matt Stodell, our managing editor at CaneSport, and yeah, I mean, it's like we're all the same. Like we all are trying our best to find some answers for what we're seeing, and not the easiest thing in the world at all. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. And let's go out now to the 305, where you're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing this evening?
What's up there, Gary? How you doing?
Who's this?
Shmira. How you doing?
Oh, hey, Shmira. How you doing tonight? I didn't recognize your voice at first.
You didn't, huh? All right.
No.
It's me.
So talk to us. What do you think? What do you think is the reason why what happened on Saturday happened?
I've seen it so many times, and actually, it's funny. When I called you last week, I was like, I jinxed this team so badly because, I can only speak for myself in this. I know Manny Diaz is not the answer and will not take us to where we ultimately, all of us as Cane fans, want to go, which would be national championships. I think Manny Diaz is a coach that could take us to the ACC championship and not win it, take us to the game, basically where Mark Richt got us to at that, in that miracle season. So, I just think that the team was, they beat an awful Duke team, which there's no doubt that any one of us could have coached that team to. Duke was just awful. They had packed it in. They didn't want to be there. This team got over their head, of which we talked about last week, that, had a great game, and then it's the ultimate letdown. They think they're better than they are, and they actually play a decent team. And I'm not saying a great team. I'm not talking about a top 5 team. I'm just talking about a top 25 team because we've only played basically two of those teams all year, and you're going to get beat. A team that could match up with you man on man and speed for speed, and probably at the end of the day probably is a little bit better than you. And I can tell you one thing, they're much better coached than we are, and that's basically what's going to happen. And you have a few things not go your way at the beginning, and then you could say c'est la vie because you're dealing with very, kids that they don't want to quit, but when they did, that game was over after the first quarter. So it's I'm not shocked at all. I'm not going to sit here and say that I can't believe what I just saw on Saturday. I don't find it shocking at all. Can I tell you what I do find shocking?
Yeah.
I find shocking that half your message board says fire Blake Baker. Now let me ask you a question. I think we both know all Blake Baker is he's a mini Manny Diaz. That's all he's doing is running Manny Diaz's defense. So
I keep saying that.
Day, if you're, I missed the beginning.
I keep saying that to everybody. I agree.
I mean, what are you guys saying? Fire Blake Baker. When you fire Blake Baker, fire everyone. Fire Manny Diaz. He's running Manny Diaz's defense. So what do you say? I mean, the guy's running your CEO's defense. And then my point, what I wanted to make was I said there are coordinators and there's a Muschamp, there's Manny Diaz, by the way, I'm giving Manny Diaz too much credit because Muschamp is actually much more accomplished than Manny Diaz. And we all know, for myself, from day one, we know that Manny Diaz was gifted this job. So it's not his fault that he might not be successful and that we're basically hiring a guy that's learning on the job. But, I mean, there's CEOs of the football teams. There's your Urban Meyers. There's Nick Saban. There's Dabo Sweeney. These guys, just their job is to hire people that are great under them to basically get everything where it needs to be and be a CEO. Manny Diaz is a glorified defensive coordinator that went out and hired Brett Lashley to take control of the offense. So you basically have one side and the other side. So you're not talking – Manny Diaz is not a great CEO. Yes, he did things in the offseason this year to make this team patch things up on, the kicking game and bring in a few grad transfers here and there to make things look a little bit better so we're not awful. But, I mean, we all know that this is just not a fluke, but it's just basically there are a few, fumbles or turnovers here or there, just being a 6-4 team, where instead they're 8-2, whatever it might be. So I mean, this team is totally a farce, and I can tell you what's going to happen in the bowl game. Half these kids have their left foot out the door. I mean, I don't know. Do you remember? I mean, obviously you remember when Butch Davis had that year where we got screwed and we didn't go to we didn't make it to the national championship game. And this is, when we lost to Washington at the beginning of the year. And then we were built. And then I believe that year, who did we play? Is that the year we played the Gators in the in New Orleans?
I believe it was. Yeah.
And you knew going into the next year, you had a young Ken Dorsey. You had young weapons all over the place. You had, on the defensive side of the ball, was loaded with young talent. They were just younger. And you knew that this team was going to get better. This year, you got Phillips is halfway out the door. Who knows what King's going to do? Half these kids that should not even consider going to the NFL are already halfway out the door. What's that? Mike Hartley's coming back to the field because it was his last day at Hard Rock Stadium. I don't know where he's going so fast, but that's for another. Cam Harris, what's he going to do? He's the third best running back anyway. But I'm just saying these guys are just halfway out the door anyway, so they're probably going to lay an egg. And I've been to that game in Orlando 6 times and saw Miami get blown out every freaking time. And I still remember Teddy Bridgewater lighting them up.
I think we beat West Virginia there once.
Oh, sorry. Was that the one time in 18
I think that was
years?
wasn't that Mark Rick's first year, right? Didn't we beat West Virginia there? Yeah.
Yeah, and Njoku actually, he looked good. I saw Washington run us over a few, not Washington, Wisconsin kill us there a few times. I think Louisville got us.
Louisville killed us, yeah. I think Manny knows a lot of these kids aren't going to want to play. He told everybody just let the dust settle for a couple of days, and then we'll address all that, But we'll see. But I agree. I hesitate. I kind of cringe when I don't know if it was you or everything. I think it might have been everything. But talking about judging the defense based on the bowl game and whether you keep Blake Baker or not based on what happens at the bowl game. I don't know that you want to do that. I think the chances that this team shows up invested in that bowl game is very slim. Let's get fired up. Let's go to Orlando and let's beat the crap out of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yeah, I could see that. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see if Manny can pull that off. Maybe nothing will ever make up for North Carolina, but
you agree. What are we building for next year? What are we looking forward to next year? I mean, like I said, I don't know. Maybe King comes back, and yes, he comes back. But you got to get King to come back, and you got to make it to Charlotte, man. It's, in my opinion, I don't. How many yees do you go on like this? I mean, this could go on like this forever. Like this is going to be now 19 years now that you're just going to be another middle of the pack ACC team. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would like Blake James to figure out what's the plan, So we'll see. All right, Schmeier, you got anything else? Yeah, no. One other point. But can you imagine that he had his chance to hire any coach he wanted?
Anybody
walked away. Anyone.
And I like Manny. He could have hired anybody. And didn't even do an interview. Like it is such unbelievable malpractice. It's unbelievable.
Gary, I remember texting you that I saw that news come out. It was a Sunday night around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I go, I cannot believe what my eyes are seeing. You got the biggest gift of basically starting over, and this is what it's unbelievable. This is my last point. Can you explain what exactly does Ed Reed do with this team, or what does he do exactly? Or is it,
Schmeier, I don't think that played out the way it was intended to this year because of coronavirus. I'm not sure he was there every single week. I think everything was just in such topsy-turvy. I can't answer what he did. I guess he mentored some kids from time to time. I think he tried to be a sounding board for Manny. I mean, he was the guy that would be the last guy in the room after a game that Manny would sit down and get his opinions on what had happened. I don't know, how much they listen to him or don't listen to him on defense and how to do things or whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't make too big a deal about him being there in one way or the other right now.
No, I consider it almost a zero because I could tell you if he had anything to do, and I'm not saying that he had coach. I know he's not coaching, but the safety play has been abominable. I mean, these kids, from one being a bonehead, they can't make a tackle. I mean, Bubba Bolden has done nothing but regress. I mean, no one's gotten better. And by the way, this is the last one, and then I'll let you get to someone else. I mean, Manny Diaz is in charge of the defense. Every player on that defense he recruited. All these stiffs that they roll out there, and I'm not counting the grad transfers. I'm talking about the ones that he found in high school. They're all stiff. There's none of those guys have gotten any better. None of those guys are impact players. Garvin Hall, Amari Carter, any of the DBs, any of the guys on the defensive line. I mean, maybe Silvera's gotten better. The linebacker play is pathetic. Those are all his guys. When do you take a look and say, these are my guys? I mean, they're all average to below average players. So, I mean, here's looking at you, I guess. That's on him. But
100%. And he's getting a fair shake. Like, he's going to go to year 3 now, and I do think they made a little improvement this year. They upgraded the personnel, they upgraded the coaching on the offensive side, and they got better results out of it. Now let's see what they can do next year. All right, Shmira. Great as always to talk to you. Thank you for being part of the show.
All right. Have a good one.
You got it. 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. All right, guys, here's the plan. It's 9:09. At 10 o'clock, ballpark, I'm scheduled to have Larry Bluestein join us, and he and I are going to break down the recruiting class. That's going to take a little bit of time, okay? We got a ton of guys on the board here, so I'm going to ask you to do this. Make your points, make them direct, make them strong, bring it, and let's move through the calls so that I can, try to get pretty much everybody that's on hold right now on by the time we get to 10 o'clock. Hopefully that's a deal. Let's start in the 941 where you're live on CaneSport Live.
Hi, Gary. It's Meister Kane here. You got it. We'll get to the
What's
point.
up, Meister? How you doing this week, man?
Hey, great. I'll go as quick as I can for you, okay? I know we got a lot of other callers waiting. You're asking what went wrong? Why did this happen? I think I can tell you. Football is 80% mental, 20% physical. If you are not mentally prepared, you're not going to physically, okay? I could tell they weren't mentally prepared. You know how? Body language. That's how I know. They choked in that game, dude. They choked on both sides of the ball. Other thing, too, Manny's not firing the defensive staff. I don't think anybody's going anywhere on the defensive side of the ball. The other thing, too, key linebackers are gone, like Shaq and Pinckney. Our linebackers are inexperienced. Secondary, too, Al Blades didn't play. Notre Dame, they had their shit together. Linebackers were attacking in the second half of the game. The first caller was mentioning what was going on. It's called football timing reaction. That's what the first caller was saying. Well, that's it, Gary. I'll let you go for now so you can get some other calls. All right? You have a great evening.
Thanks for your input.
All right.
Your input, Rob.
All right.
All right, let's go to the 845. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Yeah, Gary. I'll be
Hey, what's up, Greg?
Also.
How you doing this week?
How you doing, bud? I'm doing great. Okay. Your boy Manny, the used car salesman. That's what he should do for a living because he can't coach. You said we can't get rid of a coach. Auburn just paid $21 million to get rid of a guy that got to a national title game and beat Alabama 3 times. But we can't get rid of Manny. Yeah.
That's unbelievable that they spent that kind of money to get rid of Gus Malzahn. I mean, it's I've never seen. I mean, that is amazing.
Right. How many coaches on this staff would get picked off by another team coming and pluck one of our coaches? I don't think any of them. Maybe Lashley. That'd be it. Okay? These coaches are horrendous. And by the way,
I think Likens is well regarded.
Okay, yeah, he's and the line coaches
and Justice, yeah, and Steve Field. Steve Field would have a lot of jobs because he's a good recruiter.
Oh, okay.
So the offensive side of the ball's got some good guys.
Okay, can I ask you
know, defensively it's hard to say because all of them have jobs because of Manny, because they're Manny guys.
Oh yes, well that's great. Okay. Do you realize from last year we're giving up 98 yards a game more per game? That's pretty pathetic. And you said last week Lashley should be up for assistant coach of the year.
He is.
How about the coach in North Carolina? Maybe he should be up for the award. They average 555 yards and 43 points a game.
They had the most explosive offense in college football. I don't know who if he's a candidate or not, but you're right, he should be.
Okay, we made these running backs look like Earl Campbell and Walter Payton out there. 3rd and 26, they're getting the first down by running. That is unheard. What the hell is Manny doing out there? What kind of defense? This defense has not worked. The only time he's ever come up big in a big game was against Notre Dame, and that was 3 years ago. Who else has he beaten that was any good? Nobody. Suck it up. Hire somebody like you did on offense.
Hey, by the way, Phil Longo of North Carolina, their offensive coordinator, he is one of the candidates for the Broyles Award.
Well, he should win it. He should win it. Okay. This game next year against Bama, if we go into that game with Van Dyke or Garcia as our quarterback, that'd be grounds for arrest for Manny Diaz. That'd be like leading pigs to a slaughter.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I think a couple things. I think the obviously the full court press is on De'Ara King to come back. I think if he comes back, he'll obviously be the quarterback. If he doesn't come back, I hear that there are several guys that would be willing to go into the transfer portal if they could come be the quarterback in Rhett Lashley's offense. So, you know, we'll see what happens here. I mean, the first thing to pay attention to is De'Ara King and whether he decides to come back. But if he doesn't, you know, we'll be on quarterback watch because I do think that there will be significant interest in coming to Miami to be the quarterback in that offense.
All right. Could I just ask you one quick thing about basketball? You said
Sure.
We're going to be good by January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell can shoot three-pointers on this team? We're like
Chris Likes, Earl Timberlake, Matt Cross. You just didn't see it in that stupid game the other day because they were all hurt. Likes didn't play. Timberlake didn't play. Matt Cross can't even raise his right arm to shoot right now because he's got a hurt shoulder. So he can't shoot. You know, and Wong and Beverly aren't good shooters. They're just not. Maguste got hurt in the opening minutes of the game. So they did not have anybody that can shoot a three out there. And that's why it looked the way it did. And Florida Gulf Coast, give them credit. They caught them.
Right. Okay.
You know, you're playing without your three, but you're playing without your three best players. And then your sharp shooting young freshman can't raise his arm. So
all right.
We'll see what happens tomorrow night, man. ACC play starts tomorrow night. I got a feeling we'll have a lot of guys rolling out there with bandages on, but I got to think that most of them are going to try to play. I mean, you know, this is a team that's hoping to compete in the ACC this year, and home game against Pitt. I don't think they're looking to mail that one in. I mean, that's one you got to have if you're looking to compete in the ACC. So we'll see what happens.
All right, Gary. Thanks.
All right, Greg. Thanks for being part of the show. 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go now to the 917. You're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
Hey, what's up, Gary? BK Hurricane.
What's up, man? Talk to us.
What's going on? All right, real quick. If there's, all right, this is just your opinion. If you see, well, if you could foresee, okay, Manny makes no changes, on his defensive staff, right? Are you meaning no coordinator changes, or do you think he'll change the position coach here or there? Because Mike Rumpf isn't one of his guys. Mike Rumpf is Mark Richt's guy.
I could see Mike Rumpf deciding to go do something else. I really could. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know what Mike Rumpf is thinking. But, the rest of the guys, Stroud, Patke, Bonda, Baker, those 4 guys, those are Manny guys, okay? And he's not cherry picking those guys and sending them packing out the door. I don't see that happening. I think he'll keep them together. I think they'll come back and try to do better and fight the fight together. And if they succeed, great. If they don't, I think they'll go down together. That's the way that's what I think will happen.
But try to do better in what aspect of the game? The coaching or the recruiting? Because it's
both.
Recruiting.
Both. Now, let's slow down here. Now, let's remember, they're bringing in Leonard Taylor and James Williams, who are 2 elite prospects in this recruiting class. These are, the kind of guys that Miami's been losing the last several years.
But those 2 players are players that, one, Ephraim Banda is a great recruiter, so he could recruit. So he ended up out-recruiting a lot of people for James Taylor.
James Williams. And Leonard Taylor. Yeah. And he has a big hand in Leonard Taylor, too, yeah.
Exactly.
So you think Manny's firing him? Wait a minute, BK. You think Manny's going to fire him? No chance, right?
Who?
No chance.
Oh, no.
Coach Bonda, there's no chance.
He'll leave for a better job before that happens. He'll leave for a better job before that happens. I could see somebody
him. And what's a better job? He's paid as a coordinator here. I mean, somebody's going to pay him $600,000-$700,000? I mean, maybe if they make him a coordinator, but he's never been a coordinator by himself.
I can't foresee that either. But if Manny decides to
he'll be here.
He probably will. If Manny decides to make no changes, so is he just resigning the team, the fan base, the administration to listen? This is what it is, and if we
BK, if Manny Diaz doesn't believe in himself and believe in his guys that he handpicked to come run his defense, he might as well resign right now. Just tell Blake, hey, I'm gonna do you a solid like Mark Richt did. I'm out because of course he believes in himself.
No, I'm not saying himself, but history is the greatest teacher. He has the history of the 3 coaches that were before him at Miami, and he has the history of other coaches that made those big decisions. So
well, I'll give you 4 million reasons why he's not going to lose belief in himself.
No, I'm not saying is he going to lose belief in himself, but at some point he could lose belief in your staff.
No, because he's the leader of the staff.
Some people, and they're not living up to expectations.
He's the leader. If there's no expectations that are being lived up to, it's because Manny's not living up to expectations. And I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show. Did you hear the beginning of the show when I played his comments on this subject? He didn't sound like a guy looking to deflect anything. He stood up and he said, "I'm in every meeting and I'm involved in every single thing that goes on defense." When I asked him the question, that's what he said. He didn't say, "Oh, Blake Baker." Blake Baker plans the practices, but he stood up and he said, "I'm the guy. I am there. I don't leave the defensive practice field during practice. I am involved in everything on defense."
Right, but that's just one aspect. What is he going to do about recruiting? You can't make kids like your personality all of a sudden.
What's he going to do about recruiting? Well, I mean, let's start with Leonard Taylor and James Williams.
Right, but those aren't the positions of need. Who's recruiting linebackers? Who's recruiting
defensive tackles? Not a position of need.
Well,
a hybrid dude that might be able to be a striker or a safety or line up as a defensive end, a guy you can move around and game plan with.
On this team right now, the positions of need are linebacker and cornerback. Those are 2 positions that we have not addressed in years.
They recruited a few guys last year that they need to come through, no doubt. Corey Flagg, he flashed a little bit in the Duke game. Now, that doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. but he did flash a little bit. If he can carry that forward and keep improving by next September, maybe he can be your starting middle linebacker. From there, I don't know what they did. I didn't see much. Okay, and I agree with you.
Example. And I'm going to end the show. Let me give you a good example. LSU, they just beat Florida on last Saturday. They started 14 freshmen. 14.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know who's doing their recruiting evaluation, but man, you might want to have a talk with that guy.
Yeah, they do a great job recruiting there, and they own the state of Louisiana. But they do a phenomenal recruiting job. Yep.
They barely could field a team. They barely could field a team for that game. They still showed up and beat Florida with 14 freshmen. It's the recruiting. They had the Jimmies and the Joes playing on Saturday.
All right, well, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to go through this with Larry Bluestein, who watches these kids more than anybody, and we're going to go through this recruiting class and talk about who might be able to help next year. Go ahead.
One last thing real quick. Earlier when the season started, we were talking about that 5-star kid from North Carolina that's supposed to be in high school, 17-year-old.
Yeah, did you see the play he made the other day on D. Wiggins?
He was abusing us on Saturday. A 17-year-old was abusing a bunch of 20-year-olds.
That's what a 5-star cornerback looks like.
That's exactly what one looks like. He was abusing them on Saturday.
What a play that kid made on that one ball with D. Wiggins.
The kid is good. The kid is
and he's just getting started. Yep.
And we
I agree.
laughed when they said they were starting to.
Well, I didn't laugh. You might have laughed. I didn't laugh. I knew the kid was a player.
He's 17, Gary. He's 17. I was like, yeah, he is 17, but
I know he should have been playing high school football this year. Yep.
Yeah, that's what a real 5-star kid looks like. All right, Gary. Thanks
All right, PK. Thank you for being part of it, as always. Let's go to the 240. You're live on CaneSport Live.
What's going on, Gary? D Black.
Hey, what's up, D Black? Welcome back.
Not much, man. Hey, got a couple points I got to make real quick. Everybody's talking about recruiting, right? Recruiting, which is important. But everybody's forgetting the development part. You could bring in Leonard Taylor and James Williams, but if they're not developing, what difference do it make? What stars behind their name? Because we had Shaq and Pinckney, and they didn't develop at all, and that falls on Manny. That falls clearly on Manny.
How can you say they didn't develop? They were 4-year starters.
I mean, yeah. Come on, Gary. They got to a certain point and they leveled out, and they didn't get no worse, and they didn't get no better.
But maybe that was their ceiling.
No.
I'm not cutting you off. I'm just saying maybe that was their.
Right.
I'm not telling you to stop talking. I'm just saying that might have been their ceiling.
Okay, when I say develop, look at Denzel Perryman when he came in as a freshman. Look at his body. Look what his body was as a senior, and look at his play. Just look at how he developed as a player, as a linebacker. That's all about coaching. Why? Because you had one of the baddest mofos to ever do it, that played at the University of Miami and coached at the University of Miami, and that's Michael Barrow. I understand 5 stars, great. I think Leonard Taylor and James Williams could be, the sky's the limit. But development is key. And everybody want to keep, let Banda off the hook. Like, his safety stink. Bubba Bowden has regressed so bad. Amari Carter, I don't like talking about the young men, but their play hasn't been adequate enough. It hasn't. And 8-2 is good, but you know what I think? I compare this to. It's funny because I compare this to. You remember Rocky 3? And at the beginning of Rocky 3, you see Rocky knocking out all these dudes, all comers, knocking them out. And then when he wanted to fight Clubber Lang, his trainer Mick told him, "Nah, all those other dudes you fought were bums. They were cupcakes." So when he got in the ring with Clubber Lang and knocked the stuffing out his ass, that's like how we were this year. We got a false sense of who we thought we were when we beat the Mary Sisters of the Poor. When we played any team with a post, when we played Clubber Lang, they knocked the stuffing out of us, Clemson and North Carolina. Now, you was asking earlier what went wrong. What went wrong? And I was watching the game with some prominent coaches from some powerhouse high schools in the DMV that beating every Florida team that they played. They beat IMG. They beat the shit out of Central. So that's DeMatha, St. John's, Gonzaga, right? That has ties to the University of Maryland. And we sitting there, we watching the game. And they said, you'll be hard-pressed to get a DMV defensive player to go play for Manny. They said, for one, they said they don't like him. They said he's a jerk. They said he's a liar, and they don't trust him, one. And they was like, his defense is not complicated. They said there's no exotic blitzes. They said there's nothing exotic or difficult about his scheme. They said, and the players from the coaching staff, he said, those players don't get better. They don't know how to develop talent. This is coming from high school coaches and some people who's influential in the University of Maryland. This is coming from top-notch people who are in the recruiting game. And they're saying this about that defense. So when everything 305 said the defense is complicated, no, it's not. It's not complicated because my 14-year-old son was calling out everything that Manning was doing or critiqued them. When it was like, yo, why are they shifting everybody to the left, to the right side of the defense, Dad, and leaving number 12, Jafari Harvey, over there by himself, lined up head-to-head with the tackle in order the left guard did because they tried to loop Jalen Phillips underneath. All that left guard did, Gary, was takes 2 steps out, turn to his right, picked up Jalen Phillips right there, and stonewalled all of that.
And they were pummeling on D Black. I mean, part of their plan was clearly to beat the shit out of Jalen Phillips. I mean, they were.
Gary,
they were so physical with him.
Gary, we was watching. I mean, I was watching a game with all these great minds, and my mind in it because I coach with all these dudes, and we just sitting there, and I'm like, when is my school ever going to get back to prominence? And they said 1 or 2 things, and this is from every coach in there. They said 1 or 2 things got to happen. They said either Manny got to get a new D coordinator. They said which they doubt because he's such a power freak. And they said, but don't worry. They said Alabama take care of that for you first game of the season when Alabama dropped 80 on you, and your athletic director will have no choice but to fire him after that game. They said because
that's not happening.
They said trust him. Oh, Gary, if Alabama drops 80 points,
they're not firing Manny after the first game of the season. No chance.
All right. Well, guess what, Gary? If once Alabama, what do you think the team morale would be once Alabama beat the shit out of us September 4th?
Well, I mean, my guess is they'll have somebody like, I'm trying to think who might be on the schedule for the following week, but I assure you.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you who's on the schedule. Okay, we got Alabama. Then I think we got Michigan State after that, which is no
chance. I don't think they have Michigan State the week after.
I think it's Michigan State or it's Central. Oh, it may be Central Connecticut State. So you
there'll be something like that in the middle, right? Exactly.
Right. You get that bad taste out your mouth, but then you got to double down and play Michigan State, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's you can't win for losing. And I got 2 more points. So I'm gonna let the rest of these Kane brothers get on. Now, okay, 1 point. So say if Manny was to get fired, right? Say if Manny was to get fired. And everybody wants Mario. Everybody wants Mario. Mario. I'm a Mario guy. I would like to have Mario. But there's one guy that I would like to have here. And he's coaching in the NFL right now. And it seems like the NFL is not going to give this guy a job because they feel like they filled their quota for black coaches. But he was offensive coordinator at Colorado. He was Adrian Peterson's running back coach, and now he's been the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he's well respected in the coaching world. He's well respected in the NFL, and that's Eric Bieniemy. I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
Has he ever recruited D Black?
Yes, he recruited. He was the offensive coordinator for University of Colorado, so he's recruited. Yes, not saying that not saying that he will come, but that's just wishful dream. Just like Joe Brady never recruited, even though he was only at LSU for 1 year, but they still brought him to be I know the offensive coordinator and head coach is something totally different, but that's just a pipe dream.
He was the passing game coordinator.
Yeah, passing game coordinator, but
Yeah.
that was his offense because that offense was totally different.
No, I
And one more
understand. I
thing
understand, but they weren't counting on him to go recruit all over the country as the head coach.
So, I got two more things, and I'm going. And that thing you said you played earlier when you stated when Manny said he's never been a part of anything like that happened on Saturday, which was a bold-faced lie because BYU and Taysom Hill beat the crap out of him and rushed for over 500 yards against them, which caused Mac Brown to fire him, right? Manny's been a part of the 3 worst losses in UM history: FIU, La Tech, and UNC. That's on his record.
We've had others through the years, but I get your point.
Yeah, and look, and this is my last thing, and I'm gonna let the rest of these brothers get on. Have you ever saw the movie Wag the Dog before?
No, I didn't see it. No.
It's a great movie. It's deal with politics, so it's in line with what I'm saying. So it's a president. He's up for re-election. He gets hit with this sex scandal. So Robert De Niro goes out to California to link up with Dustin Hoffman because Dustin Hoffman is this great movie producer. So they drum up a fake war. They drum up a fake war with somebody in the Middle East to deflect America's attention off the sex scandal so we can go to war and make the president like this bigger than life thing so he can win the re-election, which he does. And I'm saying that 'cause I'm going somewhere with this. Last year when Manny fired everybody, he was always talking about it was cancers on the team. It was cancers on the team. And he was part of the cancer. But you deflect all that stuff off of you and put it on everybody else that you remove from the program, before you hired Dan Enos. But you were part of that culture. You were here for 5 years or 4 years. You didn't recruit a soul at linebacker. And the numbers that Kim posted from the defense from 2019 to 2020, I gave him that so he could post it. And you see how the defense has taken a slide from last year. So, Manny, you were responsible for recruiting those players on defense when you was the defensive coordinator. You had all autonomy to do what you wanted with the defense, and you failed miserably. So you deflect cancers, but the cancer is still there. The cancer is still in the program, and it's the head coach. And if he does not, and like BK said, look, hey, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. He's headed down that same track as Mark Richt and Al Golden. And his defenses were only good in his first 2 years here because he had Al Golden players, Gary. Ever since then, when he had to use his players, you've seen the defense steadily decline, and then you saw us give up almost 1,000 yards of total offense on Saturday.
Yeah,
terrible.
No, they haven't recruited well enough, no doubt.
Terrible. But that's all I got for tonight, Gary. Can't wait to hear the legend Larry Bluestein get on and talk his talk. And yeah, we gonna see. Oh, and they didn't have no excuses for the coaches having COVID after the Duke game. It was only after they got their stuffing knocked off against North Carolina that all these excuses started to surface. Nah. No, bro.
All right, D Black. Thanks for your input, man. Always love it. You got it. Thanks for being part of the show. Let's go to the 973, where I believe Ross is waiting for us.
Gary.
You must have just loved that game the other day.
Oh, listen, D Black just stole my tongue, and I love it for him. I love him for it. He just stole my tongue, but I'll take it.
You be the lightning. Let's go. Give it to us.
Stop with the excuses. You know why you got to stop with the excuses, Manny? Because nobody had corona, nobody was fatigued, nobody needed a break after you smashed Duke, right? But now you.
I don't think he made excuses. Did he really make excuses?
Gary, stop it. He
said
we need a break. He said we need a break.
Oh.
Who else in America don't need a break? Virginia Tech need a break. Boston College need a break. Stop with the excuses. Everybody is coming out and they're playing. Arkansas is playing. Everybody who had the corona is playing. Manny is a fraud. So let me ask you a question.
Gary, this stupid move by the NCAA, kind of goofy move by making everybody eligible on the basketball side of things. Are everybody in every sport eligible that's playing right now in Miami?
Yep, they're going to be. They're going to be any minute. Yeah.
That is so. I don't understand what they're doing. But it's
in this case, the basketball kid was a transfer who theoretically had to sit out a year, but he's going to become eligible. I think on Wednesday. I think.
But I'm just saying the confusion by the NCAA is just deplorable. It's horrible. Anyway, Gary.
Well, hey, how about the fact that they haven't told coaches? They said everybody could play this year and this year wouldn't count, but they haven't told the coaches how many scholarships they're going to be able to and how many initial new players they're going to be able to bring in for next year. And signing day is tomorrow.
I can't wait for the teams start moving away from the NCAA and leave the NCAA level. Let me make a point. Gary, I agree with you when you said on third down and fourth down, you had no idea what they was doing. I didn't either. You know why? The first third down we had, they went for a damn near bomb, and we only needed 1 yard. What was that about? But the biggest problem was this, Gary. The biggest problem was this. Regardless if we was going to win the game or not, or give up 14 points in the first half or not, when we were leaking oil, when Baker's defense was leaking oil,
Manny's defense
didn't burn Manny, whoever. Nobody burned a timeout and just say, guys, wait a second.
You're making a great point, Ross. And I have always wondered for the freaking decades that I've watched football, and it's been too many of them. But I've never understood why football coaches don't use timeouts sometimes, especially in the first half, the way that basketball coaches do.
Gary, you know why? I'll tell you why that happened. Manny incriminated himself when you had a conversation with him. Let me ask you a quick question. This is the first year I'm starting to hear you have an exclusive conversation with him. Is that a new thing?
No, they're not. We all get a chance to ask them questions. It's not just me.
Okay. I thought it was a new thing that they gave
I
you
just,
permission.
I just try to isolate the questions that I feel are important for the week and that I want for the show.
Great job.
And I
great
ask them
job.
those questions.
You're doing a great job. I'm complimenting you tonight. But let me tell you what he did as far as incriminating himself. He said, oh my God, he said, no, this is this and this is that and this. Gary, Manny, stop it. Because if that's, you know what happened to them? They all got caught in the deer in the headlights and had no idea. Because he said, what you do, you prepare for the week, and they run my stuff for the week. And you said it earlier, you said, hey, no. They're running what Manny prepares them to do. In a ball game, not everything is going to go the right way that you expect it to do. You got to be able to make adjustment on the fly. And that's why that timeout wasn't burnt, because they had no idea what to do. Because they don't know how to make adjustments on the fly, on their ass, on their feet, on the top of their head, on the side of their back. They don't know how to make those adjustments. So you're telling me he's going to keep his crew? Well, that's an embarrassment, bro. You almost got 1,000 yards put up against us on national TV before signing day, so we could be joked at. They're going to repeat those games at least 9 times on ESPNU. That's embarrassing. No, they do that. That's mandatory. Again, listen, I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. Number 5 on defense. Next year, he should report to the linebacker room. If he wants to do anything else, no, bring your behind to the league, because you cannot tackle. You don't know what you're doing. You're lost. If you can't knock somebody's head off, you have no idea. And that also kind of go for all.
You just said he can't tackle. You're going to make him a linebacker?
I'm just saying. I actually want him off the damn team.
He's a senior. I don't know that he'll be back.
Yeah,
they got some good young safeties. I don't know if he would even be back next year.
Gary, listen. A bunch of guys are going to opt out that game on the ball game. And as far as recruiting is concerned, listen, I'm going to get out your way because you got a bunch of guys. Listen, come tomorrow, we're getting what? 1 defensive tackle that means anything? Correct? Can I check with you on that one?
Yeah, I mean, Leonard Taylor, Alan Hay is in the class.
Harris, come on.
I don't.
Come on.
I don't feel that strongly about him. We'll see. I'm going to ask Larry Bluestein about him here in a few minutes. I don't think they're going to get Mason Smith. So, yeah, Leonard Taylor will be the guy.
Gary, this is what we need to do. You said it before, maybe about a year ago, maybe 4 months ago, and I agree with you on this. We need to go. I don't care if it's grad students, analysts, extra. We need to get a group of guys who are just going to concentrate. And, Gary, I mean nothing else. Just concentrate go out there and get offensive linemen and defensive linemen, recruit. Where are they at? I don't care where they're at in the world. Canada, where we just need to have those 4 guys or 5 guys, a crew, concentrate on that because we got killed in the trenches. I had friends calling me like, Ross, your team is getting beat up on offensive line and defensive line. There's nobody
pummeled.
can stop the bro. Nobody can stop. I'm watching linebackers just sitting there in their stance and going the opposite way. Gary, I'm not going to say any more. But what you said before, Manny incriminated himself because the oil was leaking and they didn't burn a timeout to say, guys, let's talk about it. I don't care if we was going to be down 21 or not, but give me a timeout. Let me know that you know what you're doing a little bit. Let me know that you're going to stop the bleeding. Gary, I'm out.
All right, Ross. Thanks as always for being part of the show. We'll talk to you next time. You got it. Let's go to the 727. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary. Jake from St. Pete.
What's up, Jake?
What a debacle. God, that game was awful. But, I don't know how anyone can't, everyone's talking about coaching, but the players were, I'm sorry, Jalen Phillips, the whole game, he's just speed rushing all off of the edge. He was terrible. You're talking, why do we lose the game? Amari Carter, Mr. Badass, loves to put the wood on anyone he can when they're helpless. 5-6 times in that game, he could have squared up against Carter or Williams, made a solid tackle. He was literally squared up in him, and he just kind of flops himself. There's one, they ran a counter. And
he's trying not to get thrown out for targeting. He went from getting called for targeting for every single tackle he was making to now being too passive when he gets to the ball.
Yeah, he's flopping like a fish when he can't hit a defenseless player. That's that's garbage. You're a punk. I'm sorry. You can smash a helpless player, but when
I don't know that he's
running
a punk,
back,
but he definitely needs to very quickly find the middle ground.
But I mean that's the whole thing. All these guys, just we've played some inferior opponents this season, and on defense especially, it's just it's selfish play. Jalen Phillips, the only reason the clock's a stop clock is right 2 times a day. That was him on Saturday. The only 2 plays he made were just he happened to speed rush the edge and just found a guy right in front of him. Other than that, he was worthless the whole game. And that's the Silvera. The week before, he's talking about, am I going pro? Am I not going pro? What? As far as I'm concerned, go pro. Go sit on a bench somewhere on a practice squad. We need these guys out of here. Like, until this stuff stops, I mean, these guys just lost focus. They beat the crap out of an inferior team. And all of a sudden, everyone's, Silvera's Warren Sapp all of a sudden. And he didn't really do anything against Duke. Unbelievable. But I'm sorry, Bradley Jennings, he looked like he was taking a shit the whole game. He squats down, waits 5 seconds, and then runs into an offensive lineman. I'm sorry, that wasn't coaching. Maybe. I mean, coaches had plenty to blame too, but my God, I mean, and then this affinity towards these senior linebackers. Sam Brooks wasn't great in that game, but he was at least doing something. He was in the mix a little bit. He got like 20 snaps. Bradley Jennings didn't know what planet he was on, and he played a good bulk of the game. Like, it was just, I don't know, a debacle from top to bottom. But, I'm looking. I brought up this idea a couple weeks ago. Blake Baker. yeah, he's running Manny's defense, but I looked it up earlier today. Manny Diaz, in his first 3 years, or his 3 years as defensive coordinator here, his defenses gave up 30-plus yards 5 times in 3 seasons. Blake Baker has given up 30-plus points 4 times this year. He's not good. And I know it's Manny's defense and all that, but in game time, you got to be able to adapt on the fly. And Baker he doesn't have a damn clue what he's doing out here. And yeah, Manny can veto, but how much time do you have? You've got, especially an up-tempo team like North Carolina, you've got 15, maybe 20 seconds in between a play to adjust on the fly. If you have a D coordinator who doesn't know what the hell he's doing and is just completely inept, there's only so much time Manny has to intervene. And I loved what who's the previous caller said, call a damn timeout. Just do something. Break flop. Do a Butch Davis. Have your guys flop or something. You got plenty of guys out there who weren't doing shit. Have them flop over. Do something. But so I look at it like Blake Baker. Who has he recruited? No one. I mean, who's his mark?
I mean, the young linebackers that they have, we don't know if they'll end up being any good, but, Austin Cave,
a bunch of
Flag.
stars who we could have gotten just from being Miami.
Well, I understand, but that's who he recruited. So, it maybe turns
0. He can't game plan. He's not a good closer in recruiting. Has there ever been a guy who's, swayed on the back end? Because, the defensive coordinators probably aren't going to be your key, guys in terms of
no, they're not supposed to be, right. Your coordinators aren't supposed to be your lead recruiters.
He can't close, and his position coaching is marginal at best. I mean, it does look like there's some young guys who, Brooks and Flag definitely have flashed. They look like, with a good off season, they could turn into something. But Baker he's got nothing done. I still say if Ed Reed's serious about maybe coaching this team, Banda up there to D coordinator and you put Reed in at the safeties coach. You don't have to get rid of your guys. Blake Baker's a casualty, but the guy's a bum. He's horrible. He's completely outmatched.
All right, Jake, I got to let you go because I got other guys that need to get on. But thank you as always for being part of the show, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, Gary.
We'll catch you next time. All right, let's go to the 352. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Gary.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
Who's this?
Quick question for you.
Who is this?
This is Mike.
Hey, what's up, Mike? All right, Mike.
Question for you. Now, you said that nobody will come in and be the defensive coordinator because of Manning, right?
Well, I don't see one of the elite defensive coordinators of college football coming to do that because they're thinking I'm better than Manny, and they're thinking they should be the damn head coach. The guys like that don't tend to go work for people that they feel that they're better than.
So why is he the head coach at University of Miami? Think about that. If you can't get a coach to come in and coach for you because they know you're better than you, you shouldn't be the head coach, first and foremost. And just like you said earlier in the year, let's stop. I had to take a breath. I said, you know what? I can't keep blaming Manning. The headless snake is Blake James. Mark Richt gave University of Miami the best gift they had in the last 20 years. He walked away and didn't want a dime. And this guy took 2 seconds and hired Manny Diaz. Why is he not held accountable for that disaster? Okay, you see what the university has done time after time after time.
I think he is held accountable, Mike, but it's his second year as head coach. So, they're not sitting there. He won 8 games, 8 out of 10 games. They're not sitting there thinking we got to fire him. I don't think anyone's not holding him accountable. But what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to go fire him now?
I understand that, but this is what I'm saying. Look at all the bad hires that Miami made before him. You would think he would say, okay, then, I'm going to do this better than the other ADs did before me. I'm going to get this right. That's what I'm saying. Look at all the bad hires before Manny. The school itself has to know this. We've had like 4 bad hires continuously. And then you got a tired Mark Witt who should have never got the job because he was worn out. Mark Witt, he had hung it up. He hung it up. He couldn't take it no more. He was worn out before he got hired at Miami. He was worn out at Georgia. He was already done. So why would you bring in Witt instead of going out and getting a good, young, up-and-coming, vibrant head coach who know about offense and defense, who can put a good staff together? Look at Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy said he hired his defense coordinator, offense coordinator to run his team because he wanted to deal with the politics of it. He wanted to control that part of it. Let his players, his coaches below him handle the football part of it. And Manny has had talks with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy has told him all this stuff, but yet and still, Manny wants to do it his way. And I'm telling you right now, he don't have to fire Blake Baker. He don't have to fire him. Guess what? Nick Saban's going to fire his ass after that first game, if you believe that. Because he's going to put 80 or 100 on his ass, and I hope he do. I'm a Hurricane fan to the end, but you know what? This is the only thing it's going to take. This is what it's going to take to get Manny out of there and Blake James out of there. Somebody got to keep blowing them out for them to recognize and see the shit is not working. That's what it's going to take. Because Nick Saban is going to run the score up on him, trust me. And it's going to be so much pressure on Blake James so something's going to have to happen. Trust me on that. So he ain't got to fire Blake Baker. Nick Saban going to fire his ass. Believe it.
All right, Mike. Thanks, man. Thanks for being part of the show.
All right. Keep me on hold.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next time. Let's go to the 386. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary, how we doing tonight?
Doing good, doing good. Who's this?
That's Willie. Hey.
What's up, Willie?
If I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. But I got three. I want to touch on 3 things real quick.
That's what I'm here for.
All right. A few years back when we opened against LSU and lost, you say you left that game with the impression that Mark Richt wasn't the coach to lead this program. So after 2 full seasons,
I never said that. That was way too early to make that kind of judgment. What I saw at that game, Willie, was a team that thought it was going to be really, really good. And when LSU came out and started punching them in the mouth, those kids freaked out and started looking at each other like, what the hell's going on, man? Like, we're supposed to be good this year. Like, why are we getting beat like this? That's what I saw in Dallas.
So how do you feel about
Willie, not too dissimilar to maybe what we watched on Saturday. Because I think all those kids just panicked. They were getting the shit kicked out of them. And I think they panicked. They didn't know what they were doing. North Carolina was scheming them up. They were beating the crap out of Jalen Phillips. They had guards pulling and smacking them. They had their tackles smacking them. Every play, Jalen Phillips was having his will tested. Okay, they were going after him physically, and I think a lot of those kids just were in shell shock.
Well, where I was going with this is, so what are your impressions of Manny after 2 full seasons?
Look, I think Manny is what Manny has always been. He's been a middle-of-the-pack defensive coordinator who has bounced around from a lot of jobs to a lot of jobs, who can do an okay job, but he is not an elite defensive coordinator. The one thing he usually does, and one of the few times we've seen it was in this game the other day, where you could make an argument that maybe those kids weren't playing as hard as they could have been in some cases, and he usually gets the kids to play really hard. If you want him to be a head coach, I felt at the time that it was in his best interest to talk Blake James into giving him the Miami job. The money would have been good. I thought he should have gone to Temple, and he should have learned how to be a head coach and polished that whole thing up from every standpoint. Recruiting, being the leader of the program, which is different than being a coordinator. That's what I thought at the time. I thought Blake James made a colossal mistake when he did that, and I thought Manny made a mistake talking Blake into it. And I haven't seen anything in the last 2 years that has made me pause and say, Gary, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I stand 100% behind my opinion I had that night. And I think that, he's trying, but I thought he did. I thought he had a great 2020. I mean, he made a lot of moves in the offseason. I thought they all were good. I think they allowed him and set him up to come through this season and win 8 games, because this could have been a 5-win football team very easily. And it was the move he made in the offseason that got him to 8.
It's something he said that really pissed me off. I want to know how you feel about the mentally exhausted comment.
I get where he's coming from. I know what they've been through. I know what they've been through health-wise. I know what they've been through, not knowing who's going to be healthy week to week. Kids sitting in dorm rooms for 14 days at a time looking at the walls by themselves. Think about that. Think about the mental impact of that. And now you're expected to come out and go beat North Carolina. You've been sitting in a dorm room looking at the 4 walls by yourself for 2 weeks. There's a lot of things. Like, listen, I mean, we're all football fans out here. Everybody wants to see the Canes kick everybody's butt every week and all that. We wanted our games. The kids wanted to play. Everybody did a great job of rallying and going out there and putting a football season together. We got our entertainment and all, but I think sometimes we can be a little insensitive as to how difficult that was. And I'm not saying you make an excuse for what happened at Hard Rock on Saturday. That was a total joke. We all know that. They got the absolute crap kicked out of them. Nobody's arguing. But that doesn't change what those kids and those coaches have been through for the last 6 months. And, I think that in our anger over the result, that maybe that's gotten a little lost. I think the humanity, because of the way that game played out, if it had been a close game or whatever, what I'm selling right now might go over a little better. But right now I got a few thousand Canes fans out there listening to the show right now, and they're saying Gary's making goddamn excuses, and I get it. Everyone's pissed. I mean, that was ugly, but I understand what those people were going through, and I mean, I wouldn't want to. And now they're going to go play a bowl game against Oklahoma State and try to stay healthy for another 2-3 weeks. And I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. I don't feel good about I don't know what Oklahoma State's going to come in there like, though. So I guess it's hard to say what I was saying, but I don't feel great about the Canes being in the supreme state of mind when they head to Orlando.
Okay, last point. You talk to Manny, you tell him he was making reference of the 98 team getting beat by Syracuse 66-13. You tell him, number one, that team had navigated its way through a probationary period, and they wasn't the 10th ranked team in the nation. And last thing is, tomorrow night at this time, Cane fans are going to be surprised we signed who?
Surprised? I mean, will you be surprised that they signed Jake Garcia, the quarterback?
No.
Okay.
I'll be surprised when we sign Terrence Lewis.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the greatest surprise might be it could be Markevius Brown, but I don't think that one's going to happen. I think Tavares Dawson would be a surprise, but he's committed to Auburn, but I think he's going to wait, so I don't expect that to happen tomorrow. Maybe Jaden McBurrows could happen tomorrow, from St. Thomas Aquinas, committed to Michigan. Or not committed to Michigan, but he's picking between Michigan and Miami. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He is committed to Michigan, but he has said that he might flip to Miami, and we'll find out tomorrow whether he does or not. I mean, I guess, would that qualify as a surprise for you?
Yeah, it would. Hey, appreciate it, man. I'm going to say, Gary, awesome show.
All right, man. Thanks for being part of it. Let's go to the 786 now. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hello?
Yeah, who's this?
Hello?
Yeah,
Joe.
Who's this?
Joe.
Hey, what's up, Joe? What you got for us, man?
I'm going to just start it off like this. The 2012 Discover Orange Bowl was a postseason college football game. On Wednesday, January 4th, 2012 at Sun Life stadium known as Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, the West Virginia Mountaineers defeated the Clemson Tigers by a score of 70-33. Do people not remember that with Dabo? Like, I get your points, and some of the points about Manny, it's like we just got to take Saturday as we got our asses handed to us. We got our coach. We got our play. We got our everything. Nothing went right. Like, didn't shit go right for the Canes Saturday. We have to, when they recruit, Miami got to get players. Just know this one thing, Gary. Look at how teams get up for Miami when they play the Hurricanes as to how the Hurricanes get up when they play other teams. We got to get players that want it. It's simple. We got to get better coaches. I agree with one of your callers. Blake Baker is pure D garbage. He's dumpster juice. Like, he don't make no adjustment. It's a copycat league, just like one of the callers said earlier. Notre Dame gave you the blueprint to fucking beat North Carolina. We didn't follow it. Hell, we beat the hell out of Florida State. Florida State gave you the fucking blueprint on how to beat them. But it's like, we got to get the dog-ass players that Miami's used to getting. We're not going to get them all. You just got to get players with heart. We got to get better coaching. We got to get better, like, all around the fucking board. But first of all, I want to just say this to Manny Diaz, and I hope he's fucking listening. Manny Diaz, you got to let Blake Baker know, this shit is not personal. This is business. Don't let Blake Baker cost you your job due to the fact you know how Hurricane fans are.
Okay, but you understand they're one, right? You understand that they're not. They're one being. They're not. They don't. Blake Baker doesn't stand alone, separate from Manny. We've been talking about that all night. Like, they are one. They stand together as one.
I understand, but at some point in time, Gary, it's not business. I mean, it's not personal. This is business.
No, but it's Manny's defense, and Manny has his hand in everything that goes on. Manny spends every minute of a practice on the defensive practice field. Like, this isn't like, Blake Baker's over here on the side autonomously running the defense. It's just not like that. I know it is when there's a true, like Rhett Lashley runs the offense. Okay, Manny's not micromanaging Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley is the head coach of the offense, essentially, and everything that goes on offense, he's calling the shots. So you want to rip offense, rip Rhett Lashley. No argument. But Manny has his paw prints in every single thing that goes on defense. And Blake Baker is not an autonomous defensive coordinator.
Well, one thing about it, Manny should know this. He grew up in Miami. I've been a Hurricane fan since '78, going to the Orange Bowl root for Jim Kelly. The one thing Manny knows, the fans will switch on his ass, regardless of what.
No, they won't. They switched last year. I mean, he's trying to win them back.
This the thing. In some places 8-2 is cool. Me, given the circumstances of just 2020 as a whole, it is what it is. Just like I said, we got our asses handed to us. You can't blame COVID for the loss, but don't blame it for the win. We got some ways to go, but hopefully, starting tomorrow, we'll get some more dogs. We'll get some more dogs who gonna really bring it on Green Tree practice field, and that shit'll translate to fucking Hard Rock. But for the time being, we just got our asses handed to us. We got, just like I say, we got our coach. We got whooped in every phase of the game. I'm talking about from the fans and all. They had fewer fans than we had, but their fans was able to make more noise. We got our asses handed to us. It is what it is. Hopefully the Leonard Taylors, the fucking James Williams, that young stud from the West, number 5, Kitchens, like number 1, the receiver, Brinson, like hopefully we getting the players that's going to make the difference. Like, they could be the difference. But at the same time, at the end of the day, all that shit going to boil down to coaching. Still got to come. All right,
Joe. Hey, I got to let you go, man. I got the man on the line, and we're going to talk a little recruiting here. So got to let you run. Thank you for being part of the show. And let me switch gears here and bring in, I don't know what to call him, the king of South Florida high school football, the dean of South Florida high school football, call him whatever you want, but he's the man, and this is the moment that we need to speak to Mr. Larry Bluestein. Larry, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Gary. Thanks so much for having me. And long day, but it's fun. It's fun in a season that hasn't been so fun.
Yeah, it really has been nuts, and I don't have to tell you, it's an angry Miami fan base right now over what they saw on Saturday at Hard Rock. So there's a lot of hope that tomorrow is going to bring some reinforcements into the mix here, and so I wanted to kind of go through it with you really quickly here today. But first, before we start talking about individual players, let me ask you about this recruiting cycle, because it is the most ridiculous, bizarre thing, I think. And you and I have been we've been doing this for a very long time, and I can't remember ever seeing anything that would even come close to this, where kids go through an entire recruiting year. They can't take official visits. They can't visit coaches. Coaches can't go visit them. And now signing day is tomorrow morning, and they are expected to pick a school where they're going to go play football. And somehow it's coming off. But have you ever seen anything like this in your life?
No, and they extended it until April of 21. That's the joke that the NCAA has become. Laughable. Someone should strip them of their powers to govern any of these athletics, because they certainly don't get it. If the objective is to get these kids looked at in exposure and in school, you need the line of communication to be wide open, especially in a year like this. But I've beaten that with like a dead horse for so many years. It's just and it gets worse, because I just don't understand how college coaches or even parents haven't filed some type of lawsuit against the NCAA for preventing their kids from getting more exposure, because they don't get any exposure whatsoever now. But it's really crazy because of COVID. They don't want the kids to mix with the coaches and the coaches to go in to all the schools. I get that, but don't cut off the lines of communication. Let them, at least the parents are lost as it is. And it doesn't hurt your star-rated athletes who committed and who pretty much are set to go where they're going to go, but it does hurt those fringe kids who, the last time that a college coach got a chance to really eyeball them and see them, they were 5'10" and 180, and now they're 6'2", 220, because it's been 13 months since they've been able to see them. So it's those are the kids that it hurts, but it also gives colleges with a lot of with a lot of ties to so many high schools around the country. It gives them an advantage too, because they could get exposed to some of those kids that I was talking about before a lot of the others. So it's been fun, but certainly frustrating at the same time for a lot of those kids who certainly need a place to go.
I don't know how you tell a kid you're going to pick a college tomorrow morning that you've never seen before. You've never met anybody there face to face. Everything's been Zoom conversations, and you're going to sign a letter of intent saying that you're going to go spend the next 4 years there. I mean, I just don't get that concept. You've literally had kids sneaking onto campuses and having coaches on FaceTime with them, telling them where to go and describing things that they would describe on visits. I mean, it is just absolutely astonishing. And then on the flip side, coaches are having to make decisions to offer kids scholarships and take kids in a recruiting class that they've never met. They've never met their parents face to face. They've never sat down and have conversations. They don't know anything about these kids. They haven't been to the high schools. They haven't spoken to the people at the high schools about their character, what kind of kids they are. This is the most imperfect recruiting process that you're ever going to see. And I want to go through this class with you, so we might as well start. The greatest place to start, Larry, is with Jake Garcia, quarterback, who I believe is going to sign with Miami tomorrow. This kid, okay, he did visit Miami. He visited Miami back when Dan Enos was the offensive coordinator, so he's seen the school. He's had the tour. But he didn't pick Miami. He picked USC, and he is committed to USC now for well over a year. So what happens? They take this kid. He's a 4-star kid, and as time goes by, USC decides that maybe they're not as crazy about Jake Garcia, that they might have some better options over here. And so they take a second quarterback. Jake Garcia says, okay, I don't mind competing. I'm good. You could take two, no problem. Then a week before signing day, he finds out that now they're recruiting a third quarterback, which is essentially the USC staff telling Jake Garcia, who has been committed for a full calendar year, that we really don't want you anymore. We think we've got guys that are better. So now this kid he has to pull the plug on his commitment, no problem. He's already gone to Georgia to play high school football because they canceled high school football in California. And fortunately for him, Larry, he had a relationship with the Miami staff and had spoken to Rhett Lashley at least. And it looks like he's going to sign with Miami tomorrow. But that right there and all those elements of Jake Garcia's recruitment just sums up the whole damn thing.
Yeah, that's true. And he's, like I said, and I'm one guy, I'm a proponent for depth, which Miami has no depth at any position. So that really helps out as far, because the way I feel about Tyler Van Dyke. I think he's the most overlooked guy that they have. I mean, this is that anybody understands. This kid's just a tremendous football talent. He's a great baseball player and he's a great athlete. And he and Jake will be trading punches left and right in there and that's good because that's what Miami needs. Miami needs this. They need 3 Leonard Taylors. They don't just need one. They need another James Williams. They don't need just one. See, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, they get those 2 and 3 guys every cycle. So that's why you could afford to lose a defensive front like Clemson did that year and still still play for the national title the next year. That's where Miami needs to get. Will they get there? There's a lot of questions. This class coming in right here is a great class. But you just illustrated why this is a great class. First of all, because of the fact that the parents, I'm probably laying on the line. They had no chance to go to anywhere else. They had no other visits. They had no chance to go to, Florida or Wisconsin or Ohio State because of the pandemic. So they pretty much saw Miami. It's a regional recruiting class. Only 4 kids from outside the state, maybe 5, and that's it. Miami played on the fact that all the fans kept saying that they lose all the top kids. Well, they didn't lose all the top kids. They lose some, but they didn't lose all of them this time. I think with James Williams and with Leonard Taylor, you got 2 of the best players in the country. And definitely in Leonard Taylor, a kid, if he stays healthy, he'll be a first-day top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He's that good. He's that dominant.
Have you had a chance? I know Garcia's been through California and Georgia now. Have you had a chance to watch tape on him?
I watched him. Yeah, nice-looking kid. Makes a lot of throws. He'd be like I said, you get him here and add him to the competition. I mean,
and let him compete with Van Dyke.
Yeah, exactly. Let him compete with Van Dyke because those are your 2. And you know what? I'm not going to take Peyton Machocha out of the mix, too. I watch that kid throw. He's got a pretty decent arm, and he makes good decisions. So let them all 3 go at it. Let's see what happens. And, then you create depth. You create a lot of competition, which Miami doesn't have. They just don't have it. That's just the way it is. But that's the way it has to be. If you're going to be a championship caliber team, you're going to have to do that. And if the transfer portal eases them in, which is great, because I heard somebody mention this the other day, at the NFL level with the Dolphins. Let the Dolphins get like one of the top wide receivers, but also get somebody in free agency so he can learn from him. And that's what the Hurricanes need to do. They need to get some, they had 2 years ago, they went to Buffalo and got a guy who really lifted the team up because he was a veteran guy. He was 22, 23 years old. That's what they need to do. Not everybody has to come from high school. If you're going to go in the transfer portal, get yourself a darn wide receiver that, can teach some of these young kids, a thing or two about what it takes to catch a ball when they need to catch a ball.
All right, let's talk about a guy that I know you've seen a lot of and up close, and that's Thaddeus Franklin, the running back from Chaminade, Madonna,
who is going to be the lone running back in this recruiting class. Miami's got Don Chaney, they've got Jalen Knighton, and I can't imagine that Cam Harris is going pro. So it's a crowded backfield right now. You got three guys. Does Thaddeus Franklin have the ability to compete with those three guys, or is he the number 4 guy for now, and he's looking at competing down the road?
Well, he'll be a number 4 guy for now. I mean, he's been hurt too, so he hasn't really played a lot, this year towards the end because of the fact that he had, he got injured and they gave way to a freshman. But when he's healthy, he's a Big Ten runner, big kid, wear you down. They're all change of pace backs. You have somebody like Jalen Knighton who's an elusive, quick, slithering back who gets through the holes. You don't get a good shot at him. You got a guy like Chaney who's athletic, a 7-foot high jumper, and then you got the Franklin who will wear you down with his big body. So yeah, I think that having those three complement each other really well for the future.
So you think Franklin fits? I
think
fits.
Franklin fits. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's move on to the wide receiver spot, where you got three guys from South Florida, which means that you've seen them extensively as well. Let's start with Romello Brinson, the lanky receiver from Miami Northwestern, 6'2", 180. We've got him rated as a 4-star at Rivals. Your thoughts on Romello Brinson and how he's going to come in and fit right away in the Rhett Lashley offense?
Difference maker. Kid that does anything and everything. Fast. He'll get the ball. He'll go up to the highest point and get the ball. He'll steal it from you. He's got great ball skills. Tremendous athlete. Midway through the first part of his freshman year, he'll be playing. More and more to the point by the end of his freshman year, he either will be starting or he will have extensive playing time.
So he can or cannot be better than D. Wiggins and Mark Pope.
He can.
Okay, well that'll be encouraging to people because Miami needs to get better. See, to me,
he could be better.
To me, like the barometer in recruiting for Miami right now should be: is this guy better than what we are playing with? Because what they are playing with is not getting them anywhere. So they have to upgrade the personnel in this program, and I think that should be the standard on all these guys. And so Brinson, and I happen to agree with you on Brinson. I think he's a guy that can be better. There's no doubt about it.
Maker.
Yeah. All right, now
let's. No, I was just going to say, but let's also take a look at guys like Pope and Wiggins that before, that I don't think that they were tremendously coached up in the past. They got better coaching this year. Go ahead.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Jacoby George, a kid that might be one of the sleepers of this class, in my opinion. Probably not as polished as Romello Brinson, but he's got to get bigger. I think he only weighs 165, 170 pounds right now. He's going to need some time. But he does have some pretty decent ball skills, right, Larry?
Yeah. Well, here's a kid also, one of those athletes. As a freshman, he kicked and he punted, played safety and played wide receiver. And then as a sophomore, he kicked off and he kick return and punt return to add to everything else that he does. Just an amazing athlete, a second-year difference maker. First year, he'll learn a lot. I think it'll be a kind of a crowded house of good athletes in there. And but by his second year, he'll make a part. He also can be a punt returner. He's got great hands for a punt returner too.
All right, and then the third receiver in this class is going to be Brashard Smith from Miami Palmetto, and we've watched how Mike Harley has just exploded in this Rhett Lashley offense this year. And Lashley's really good at finding angles for these guys to make big plays and stuff. And I think when he recruited Brashard Smith, and I think he recruited him personally, that's how badly he wanted him, that he sees that type of player, a guy that he can really game plan with and isolate him in advantageous situations and get big plays. Day
one kick returner, no doubt. tough to guard against him. He'll average 30 yards every time he gets his hands on the ball. He's just that way. Former running back, so he has an opportunity to understand how to run with the ball once he gets it in his hands. Played in the secondary, so he has really, really good hands. So he's been one of those versatile Swiss Army knife guy who gave Palmetto 4 straight weeks of running the Wildcat and sacrificing his body in the playoffs because they lost their quarterback. So, yeah, he's another one. He's road tested. He'll definitely make his way onto the field before a lot of these guys will.
And he showed his toughness by taking on that role as he's not the biggest guy in the world, and he took on that role as Wildcat quarterback, and I think he showed his toughness in doing that. Yeah. So I really like that one a lot.
He got his ass beat up, but yeah, you're right.
But so with these 3 guys, I feel like they are improving themselves at the receiver position with these 3 guys. I feel really good about that position here in recruiting. I think it's one of the better ones. All right, let's move to the tight ends. Have you had a chance to watch much of Elijah Arroyo out of Texas?
Probably as much as anybody has. That's all I've been doing. I watched that kid over. I've watched every single game film he has. I'm telling you, this kid is a keeper. He will knock you out as a blocker, and he will catch things upfield on you. He's quick. He's elusive. He's strong. I'm telling you, this guy comes in with the attitude that just tell me what to do and I'll get it done. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I love him. I'm with you 100%. I've watched a lot of tape on him as well, and I think he fits like a glove at the tight end position here at Miami. I think he'll play. I think if Brevin Jordan goes pro, I think he'll play next year. I really do. I mean, I know Dominic Mammarelli's been doing a decent job, and Larry Hodges and all. I think this kid has more ability than those guys, and I think he's going to rise very quickly. It'll be interesting though to watch, but I agree with you. A great pickup. Now, nobody ever hits 100% in a recruiting class, and we always sit here and on signing day, and you feel you want everybody's an All-American on signing day. One of the ones that I've wondered about is this next guy, and not because I don't think he's a good player. I think he's a decent player and all that. I'm not sure that he's a Miami player, and I'd be curious to know what you think because I know you've seen him a lot, and that's Khalil Brantley. Very nice kid. He's been a Hurricane for a long time now. He committed back in February 2019. He helped recruit Jake Garcia. He's a Hurricane all the way. But can he play at Miami with the type of tight ends like Arroyo that they recruit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's going to be an H-back. And secondly, what he is he's probably the best athlete in the entire deal. He averages 44 yards in punting. He throws the football 76 yards in the air. This kid is one of the best athletes that Miami recruits in this class. I'm telling you right now. I've watched him play other positions. He does everything. He's an ultimate team player, gets it done in the classroom. No, he's definitely one of the most important guys in this class. You watch him. He's going to make his way on the field in a number of ways. They have a lot of packages that they're going to have in store for somebody like this. This kid he's just a complete surprise that people never watch him, but just watch him. Gets upfield just as good as anybody, sheds blockers, but not only that, he can run with the ball. And that's why he was a wide receiver for 3 of the last 2.5 to 3 years before everyone started deeming him as a tight end. He's more of an H-back because he could do a lot of different things. But like I said, anybody that could punt the ball 40-something yards as an average, and somebody who could throw the ball that far gets my vote anytime.
Do you see him at a Brevin Jordan type level as an athlete? You do?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, then if you're right, then I'm wrong.
Well, here's the thing about Brevin Jordan. He's going to be one of those guys almost like Chantrell Henderson. that you never really got a chance to look because they were hurt or they were doing something else. Because how much did Brevin Jordan play? We really didn't get a full mix of Brevin. He was out 5 games this year, 5 last year. So I'm telling you, this kid comes in with a lot of durability. He's going to do more for the team overall in different roles. I'm just thinking that people don't really understand that Brantley is really a very, very good football player.
Can he be a Chris Herndon type player, Larry? Can he like let's use Chris Herndon as an example.
Yeah, he can do that. I think he can do that, but I think he's more set. You'll see. They'll have a lot of packages for him where they get him paired with safeties or linebackers. From the backfield, from motion. He's that type of guy. They'll see once he gets doing stuff and starts doing it better than a lot of people that he's, and I've been watching that kid since he was in Little League too. So he's.
No, I know you have.
He's
All right,
he's always been athletic.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mentally adjust myself. And I'm going into this one with an open mind because, like I said, a minute ago, like I was kind of wondering about that one a little bit because you always look and say, okay, who are the guys that might be reaches a little bit and stuff. If you look back through the recruiting classes of the last 10 years, I mean, at best they've been 50-50 propositions. So, like, I'm always looking at it with that type of I'm always looking at it with that type of eye. So I'm gonna check myself on that one and go into it with a little bit more of an open mind based on your review. All right, the offensive lineman, Larry, a position of immense need at Miami. I don't think anybody would argue that. I'm looking for them to get the heck out of town and go out into the Midwest and the Panhandle if they're and find some tough ass SOBs that can come down here and be the type of dominant, difference-making offensive lineman that Miami has just not been getting in recent years, okay? So that's out the door for the most part. In this recruiting class, we're starting with 3 guys from Dade and Broward, essentially. So I want your opinion on them. Lawrence Seymour, Miami Central. He's 6'2", 265 now. He's got to get bigger, obviously. Tell us your thoughts on him.
Stud, just in anywhere you put him, guard, center, tackle. Just probably end up at guard for him because of Rodriguez will go to center. Just beats every defensive lineman he goes against. He's got great leverage. He's strong. He's athletic. He's knowledgeable. He's played the position. He's going to be a 3 to 4 year starter.
Better than Delone Scaife level player in college?
A whole lot different.
But will he be will he be a better offensive lineman?
I think he comes in as a more accomplished offensive lineman and has played the position a lot longer. So played it all the way back since the 6th grade. So he's never wavered.
Okay. All right. Ryan Rodriguez, the center out of Miami Columbus, walking in this year. He'll be the heir apparent to Corey Gaynor at center after Corey Gaynor finishes out next year. Your thoughts on him?
No question. Student of the game. Quality kid, quality player, just coaches like what he brings to the table. Strong, he's agile, he's athletic. His first step is quick, gets out of there. Yeah, he's a leader. He's a leader. So he's going to be very special.
All right, and then the third one from South Florida is Michael McLaughlin from Douglas Parkland. A tall kid, 6'8", 295. He's gained, I think, like 60 pounds in the last year or two. Kind of gone the Zion Nelson route. Clearly a tackle project, so to speak. What have you had a chance to? I know he's at Parkland Douglas. Have you had a chance to watch him live?
Yeah. I have a couple times. He's Eric Winston. That's what he's Eric Winston. Not going to say that he's going to be Eric Winston in college and what Eric Winston did in the NFL, but he's Eric Winston coming out of Texas. 6'8", gawky, tight end looking, but tackle for sure. agile, athletic, can run. That's what he is. That's what he represents. That's you don't go and find these tall kids who can run like that or are athletic like that too often. And yep, he's the deal. But he's got a year or two, to sit there and cultivate his talents. And but he's going to be a guy down the line. And
so you see him as a guy. You see him as somebody that can maybe play by year 3.
Yes.
Okay. And then they're taking a real hard. Garin Justice will have a big. Garin Justice will have a big influence on his career too. Okay. And then there's another guy, Austin Barber, out of the Jacksonville area that they recently offered. Have you had a chance to look at him at all?
Yes. Saw him last year. Yeah, another kid that fits the mold, athletic type of kid, intelligent, leadership. I think he's got athletic ability. Another guy that'll be in the mix for playing role, second, third year type of kid.
All right, he's going to wait till February to sign, so he won't be signing tomorrow. Miami's in a battle with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Maryland, and Virginia Tech for him right now. But so we'll be waiting a little bit for that verdict. Moving to the defensive line, Larry, have you had a chance to watch Thomas Davis on film much, the kid out of Georgia?
Yes, I have. I saw him twice. I think you and I talked about him last time. Extremely. In fact, I saw him against Northwestern last year, and he impressed me there. He showed his speed. Extremely agile guy. You gotta like what he brings to the table. Gets it done against all the top players. You try to block him. I've seen him. They try to high-low him a little bit and do a lot of stuff to slow him down. But no, he's very athletic and strong.
All right, now we come to another guy that I'm really interested to see your feelings on this one. He's a shaded undersized, maybe not really sure, but I'm curious to know what you think about Alan Hay from Chaminade Madonna, a defensive tackle recruit who's going to sign tomorrow.
Got a chance to see Alan play 4 times this year, and I will see him for the 5th time tomorrow evening. I will tell you this: he is probably the biggest surprise. I think everybody, who recruited him liked him, but after watching him this year, there's a lot to be happy about because he's strong, he's fast, he gets out of there quick, he gets in, he chases people down. He's a great run stopper. He's going to be somebody to watch, and I think Miami really struck gold with him.
All right. Jabari Ismail, the defensive end from Miami Columbus. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah. Kind of work in progress, but you can't teach 6'6". He's like 6'5", 6'6", tall kid. Great bloodlines. Dad, I ran into his brother who used to play at Miami Sunset, who's now the athletic director at Palm Glades. His dad's strength conditioning coach. He's very athletic, and I think he's going to get in that 260, 270 range someday, and he's going to beat people up because he's very athletic right now. He's still thinnish, but that's going to change. It's going to change weight room wise. It's going to change with the way he eats and just his nutritional process. But he's got a second year, he can make some noise, and third year he can really be a huge asset.
All right, we've talked about in recent years so much about the need for more elite recruits. And the next guy, Leonard Taylor from Miami Palmetto, defensive tackle. I think you and I are in a 100% agreement on this one too, that he is an elite recruit. You just said a minute ago that you think he in 3 years is going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. What makes him so great?
He's strong, quick, athletic. Plays the game like he's 145 pounds. He gets around fast. He moves. His first move was like he's like a potential Aaron Donald type of guy. He's not going to be, but I can't say that. but he's got that athletic ability. I can tell you that. He's just, he's the deal. You don't have to look at him once or twice to know that he's a difference maker.
He can be the mega super